All right, hello and welcome to Aetheryte Radio Gamerscape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast. I'm FusionX. Joining me today, we have a full house plus one. We've got Zanidra, Aldino, Rook, and joining us. This is like, what am I? Where am I? What am I doing here?
What is happening?
How
are you in my home?
He's like in the middle. He's like positioned like Alice on Brady Bunch. He's not quite sure. Who are these people? Why am I here?
That was just like a really sudden cold opening. I was like, oh, okay, all right, here we go. Let's do it.
Well,
all right.
He's like listening
radio time.
He's listening to our little intro, and then when it's over, he just goes, and we're like, okay, we can start moving again.
So I don't actually hear the intro. I just watch the audio bar, and when it stops, I know it's done. So as soon as that's done, I go over. Anyway, so here we are. Today, we're going to be talking spoilers for patch 5.1, and we're going to be doing our patch 5.1 review. But first, a little bit of news last night, right as I was going to sleep. News broke that Gilgamesh's group Thoughts Per Second completed the Epic of Alexander at 11:26 p.m. Pacific.
Good job.
Yeah, middle of the night. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. It's funny because I saw this while I was like getting ready for bed, and then Frosty had retweeted it, and I had seen another tweet that's like, what, he's like, don't do anything while I'm sleeping, guys. Like,
yeah.
And then right then is when that drops. So yeah, congrats to them. That's awesome. I've seen some clips. That looks crazy. Absolutely
it does.
Crazy.
That's an ANZ world first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Sophia's from New Zealand, and there's like 7 other people, I think, in that group.
Mm-hmm.
And their contributions just as important. They're really really skilled. But in New Zealand, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Super cool.
Represent.
Yeah, it's awesome that we have people from each region taking world first now. I think.
Yeah,
right?
It's balanced, right?
Yeah.
Because we've had JPEU NA, I think.
Yep. Yeah. And well, NZ. So we got Oceania in there.
Yeah.
Well done, everybody.
Catch up, Antarctica.
Yeah. What are you doing in Antarctica?
Get on it. It's like your raid scene is frozen or something.
Oh.
Okay. All right. That's
I'll see everybody. I'll see y'all next week. Have a good time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
No. You stay.
All right. So that's gonna take us into Spoilercast. Additionally.
Balmung were first.
Oh right, yeah. You completed your Ishgard stuff first.
Ishgard restoration. We're done.
Even a question? Was that a question? Did anyone think that wasn't? It's Balmung. It's the biggest server. It's gonna happen.
There was actually a concerted effort on Balmung's part to help the smaller servers, and then when they locked us out, we were like, sorry, guys.
Yeah.
The small servers on Crystal crawled to a halt, and we're just like,
oh no.
Yeah.
It's I think I've been dabbling a little bit, and last night before I logged out, we were set to have the final works go off at like midnight. I'm like, well, I'm not staying up for that. Like,
It was perfectly timed for me. It was like right before raid, right before I sleep. Thank you.
Perfect.
I will do these.
All right, so let's get into it. Patch 5.1 Msq discussion. So after 5.0, right? 5.0 was so epic.
Yes.
It's how are they going to follow this up, right? We had the cliffhanger. We had Gaius jumping at Xenos. We had just seen Amarot for the first time, and lots of stuff happened. So we get back in on the source. We go talk to Tataru. Kryl comes later, not much later, but later. It's like, yeah, remember the Gimlet Dark? That was a thing. That was like the last big thing that we had to deal with.
Dungeon you didn't really like.
Remember the Gimlet Dark? Yeah, everything's kind of quieted down. We don't really know what's going on anymore. Tataru is like, hey, you need some feels, so let's go tell Famine all about Nymphilia. And it's like as soon as like they bring that up, I'm just like, oh no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this.
Honestly, it needed to happen though, and even like when we were over there, I was thinking about the fact that there are so many people that Nymphilia is connected to, has touched, has been a part of, is considered
has
family.
bothered.
Has
Prey returned to the way.
But I mean, it is interesting to think about the fact that, I mean, she has just been a big question mark for so long because she was gone, and to see some of that, they didn't totally punch us with the scene, but to even see a little bit of it was still pretty
to
emotional.
even know that like it was coming and that was like it was gonna be like at least a small discussion point. I was like, oh no, I don't want to. I don't. And me and the wife were playing this right like with each other. You know, we did the Msq together, and we're just like, oh, I don't know if we can handle this. This might be a little much.
Everyone else got closure, like back in
Yeah.
and Lamin got pretty much nothing.
A job being a bartender, like
Continually.
like that
nothing.
was the scene. Minfilia goes off, and she's just like chilling at the bar, just like, I sense a disturbance in the force.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the end.
That was terrible. That was so
My
tragic.
daughter is gone.
Yeah, so it's good that they did it. You know,
Did you guys all do the quest after the MSQ with her?
No.
I just started it.
Yeah, so there's a side quest after the MSQ
No, if I
where
knew that.
you basically go and hang out with Lamin and get some closure.
Yeah.
I mean,
I won't spoil it for you, but it's nice.
I've been so busy. I basically finished MSQ 2 days ago when Fusion was like, "Hey, we need your scores."
Oh yeah, there was a patch.
well,
I've had so much traveling and work stacked on top of itself.
Yeah.
It was a very weird feeling to be like, I have to stop working to play a video game. All right,
Clearly, you're living the best life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember that. I mean, what kind of led me to that is that some of those final dialogue bits, Tataru says to you, "Oh yeah, maybe you should go check in with Philomene because, you know, she found out for sure that her daughter is dead." And I was like, "Oh yeah, maybe I should do that."
It's like, hey, can you just do that though? I'm gonna be over here.
Well, but I mean, honestly though, I think that's a smart move on their part because if you think about it, like as far as the actual narrative pacing goes, nothing would have slowed our first big patch after Shadowbringers as much as like, now let's have 5 cutscenes and let's talk to Philomene for a long time about what happened with Minfilia, even though we already covered this with the whole Thancred arc, Rhine, and all of these things with Irene. Like it's something where I think that it's nice to have a little thing at the end to give it due time, but not have it slow the pace of everything.
And I think
they would have done that in ARR, right?
Yeah. No.
And it's cool that they've learned since then, and they kind of like you say, take those little bits and just put them in side quests over here.
Yeah,
right. And it's one of those things where, you know, they've told us leading up to Shadowbringers that they're hoping to answer a lot of questions that have just been kind of sitting around for a while. And we, you know, this kind of closure with Philomene is one of them. We have another nod to another thing that I had completely forgotten about because it was such a small little bit of, you know, stuff we've seen previously. And it's just, they're just sprinkling lots of little stuff in to, you know, it's one of the reasons why Shadowbringers has been so good with its story is because it has so much to borrow from and all this stuff that's connected. So after you talk to Philomene, Real, which is kind of like the Source's version of Thancred now, right? Since Thancred's not there, he's like, I can do this. I'll step up. He shows up, but doesn't really have anything to tell Tataru about her helper. So
is he actually good at his job?
Was Thancred?
He's learning. He was just kind of...
he was late for a very long time.
Yeah. So he's gonna go sneak over into Garlemald and make contact. Then Kryl arrives and informs you that the link between your friends' souls and bodies is weakening, and hey, you should probably go tell them that.
Guess what, guys? You're dying.
Meanwhile, she's gonna talk to actual Matoya, not Y'shtola Matoya, actual Matoya.
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matoya.
Matoya.
I don't know why it hit me that way, but it did.
Yeah, and they're gonna work on a way to make the corporeal aether stable as long as they can, so that their bodies just don't rot, I guess, like, because they're just sitting there. They're not doing anything.
Not eating. What's an IV? This is Eorzea.
Well, you know it's really serious when Matoya's actually cooperating.
Yeah,
exactly. I know, right?
Well, and you know she probably wouldn't be cooperating if Y'shtola wasn't afflicted with. She'd be like, nah, I don't like any of those people. That's fine.
I don't care about them.
The twins, you know, she kind of.
Eleanor, who's that?
Yeah.
So you go back to
Grandpa dumped me.
Yeah,
It's Screw those
Is that
kids.
is that actually true, or is that headcanon? Because it's mine now.
Probably.
All right, I believe it.
I'm invested in this now.
Did you just
I
create
want
an
that story.
OTP?
Yeah.
This is the real OTP of Shadowbringers that we didn't realize existed.
Oh, no.
Absolutely.
I'm down.
Tragic.
So you go back and you tell all your friends, hey, so your bodies aren't doing well. And they're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. They're not like, they're just kind of like, yeah, sure.
You know,
Okay.
You're probably right.
Yeah,
Or
so
panic,
they're
like, what? No, yeah, okay.
like,
that
oh
makes
my
sense.
god! So they're all right. They're like, we should probably figure this out, right? This is the next step. We've saved the first. We should probably try and get back to the source. And so the idea is proposed that they use Aetheryte to do that, since they need to transfer the soul over. They're like, we'll stick our soul in Aetheryte, like the Ascian stuff, and then you can put us in your bag and like go across the rift and problem
Anybody
solved.
else immediately think, what? No!
It's a terrible idea.
What's wrong with you? Aren't you supposed to be the smart ones?
Yeah. So in order to do this,
Makes sense.
you would like to get the experience from somebody that's a little more knowledgeable about this. Something that knows a thing or two about soul preservation and transference. Luckily, our buddy Tia knows a Numo,
We just know
who
a
is.
guy.
He does. I just happen to know a guy. He,
He doesn't
went
like
to,
me, but I know him.
Right. I went to try and visit him once, and he attacked me with some familiars, and I just haven't talked to him since. But I'm sure he'll talk to you guys because that's where the story needs to go.
Because you
So
beat him up.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, we're gonna beat up all his familiars, and then he'll talk to us.
Yeah.
Because
No,
we'll give
I'm
him no
curious.
choice.
Ethys, maybe you have a little bit of insight on this, or anybody else here who has a good memory. Do we actually, in the cutscene, so with the job quests that we do in Shadowbringers, obviously that ties into some of the, backstory in the region that this particular Numo is involved with, the, magical corruption. Do we see him in those cutscenes with, like,
No.
the court advisors?
Yeah.
No.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, during the tank role quests, we do get some echoes from the perspective of one of the Numos that's still in Ilmeg, but we don't see Beklug. Which is
Yeah, and I
interesting
was
because it's all about this ethereal corruption that's basically transforms people into the equivalent of a void sent. It like reverses their ethereal polarity in like the other direction from the Sin Eaters and the Flood of Light towards Astral. Beklug is the guy that basically designed the alchemical reagent that allows this to happen.
Yeah.
And we don't see him before 5.1.
It's a little confusing because they all do look the same.
Well, yes. I mean, I knew
he's got a red.
got his
a
thing.
red coat on.
Yeah.
Not a green.
I mean,
one.
in any other situation, very racist remark. But all the Numo look pretty much the same.
I mean, all the fairies kind of similar, so pixies, kind of similar,
Yeah,
I knew
well,
that
it's like all the
they're
all the
obviously
large
different.
all the large mist hells in Yulmore, literally the same model. Like,
Yeah.
not even trying to hide it.
They're
In
just-
our world,
One has
the
like a
part-
mask.
they're
By the
lava
thing over their
fells.
head.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I knew that they were. They're definitely
Lalafell
different.
skeletons. They're just bloody
Yeah.
Lalafels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was in that panel at PAX. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I was
Beklug, right?
anyway, right? Yeah, no,
Yeah, right.
but, it is interesting that with a lot of this zone, and even with the beast tribes, like we talked about a little bit, they're tying so many different things in to sort of bulk up the lore and our sort of glimpse into the history of what happened here. So I was curious about that because I think that would have been a really cool little tie-in if he was like in the background, and then we get this connection later that hey, he was fundamental in this whole tragedy that happened that set things up.
I went back and searched for him in those cutscenes because
You had to know.
I was hopeful, yeah.
Yeah.
It still ties it all together.
Oh yeah.
In a nice way. You get some extra dialogue options if you have done the tank role quest, which is
Oh, nice.
I didn't know that.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, you basically get to anticipate what Beklug's saying and saying, oh yeah, you're talking about the magical plague, Voba.
Wow, that's awesome.
And he's like, "Oh, so you've heard."
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that was cool.
Yeah.
So Tia's like, hey, so I know this guy. He's kind of like in this castle. He's across the lake, which is also named the Source, which isn't confusing at all
No,
to
not a
anybody.
little bit.
As soon like they announced it, it's like on the far shores of the Source, and I was like, what? I'm confused. So we're going back to the. Okay, they should have named it something else. They really.
Someone in chat is telling us, Ethys, you're a little softer than everybody else.
Oh, okay.
Is he?
Well, let me hang on.
Interruption.
We're so loud is the
Yeah.
thing.
How's that? That should be better.
Oh
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Mm.
It might be. I also when we got started, he was also super loud, so I turned him down just a smidge.
How could you?
There we go. Hopefully that's
Yeah, how
balanced.
could you?
That's better. Okay, people are saying it's better. We're good.
Okay.
All right. So Uriandra's like, hey, I'm gonna stay behind. You guys can go and deal with whatever's going on over there. And so this is the Grand
Just a little
Cosmos
sweat.
dungeon. Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna aura sight and stuff. And this whole time, Thancred and Rien are just like chilling, eating stuff, whatever. There's still stuff going on over there, but we won't
Very
know about it for another
Restoring
3 months.
the world.
Yeah.
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 Watching over that mysterious person who we know exactly, at least somewhat, who she is. Yeah.
Well, we
We'll-
do,
we'll
but
hammer it
we
out at some
don't
point.
because Uriandre likes to keep his secrets. And
Yeah.
it's great. It's so great. So you go through the Grand Cosmos, you fight off his familiars and Becklug. After you convince him with some dog puns, he joins up and has decided to help you. So you go to Journey's End.
I hated that so much.
They were terrible.
Yeah.
They were
They were
terrible.
real bad.
I like puns, but they were basically picking on this guy with them.
Yeah.
What is
They really were.
Boring.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it was bullying. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So you go to Journey's End, and you're gonna look at all those people that have been, afflicted with that thing that turns them into sin eaters. And Becklug comes up with this soul tonic, and it kind of has an effect on some, doesn't have an effect on others. And so
It makes them warm.
Yeah,
I wanted them to.
warm.
I had a really dumb thought while I'm doing this. I'm like, some of them are getting warm. Is this like Iron Man? Are they gonna explode? Is this actually what's gonna happen? Because you
Yeah.
don't know. This is
Yeah,
an
I mean-
experiment. You're experimenting on people.
You know,
It's
I didn't
true.
think of it that way, but that is definitely
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Well,
He's like,
They
I'll
could
help you
explode.
/ do research for my own.
I mean, it is stimulating,
it's-
you know.
That's how
Yeah.
astral ether
Yeah.
works. That's
Yeah.
why we've got all those crystals exploding around the place with the seventh calamity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They
It's not
literally
too
could
bad.
explode.
I like that you just backed
That's
up
a
this
problem.
ridiculous theory that popped into my head. Thank you very much.
Then you've got that lore
So
backing
welcome.
now. I mean, it was nice though that they didn't just like swoop in magic solution, everybody's happy now, yay, we can, I liked that there was still a bit of that just really powerful levity that I
Mhm.
remember from playing through initially, right? And like when you go through that zone and obviously you have everything that happens there with the characters and Alice and
Mhm.
goes into that first boss
Tears.
of the first dungeon. Like
Oh man.
that was just such a good way to set the stakes for the devastating loss that has been
Mhm.
here on the first. So I was glad that we're addressing it, but at the same time it does seem like there are still stakes to this.
Mhm.
If you are so corrupted, there may not be a way back, which then made me think a lot about the void, and I was like, hold on, wait, but could we in a future X-Pack maybe go but help the people? But I don't know. So
That
it's
would be fun.
interesting.
That's
That
where
would
I
be-
thought they were gonna go with it. Well, it's the next part actually. They're like, well, I mean, if this could work for people who are light influenced, maybe it'll work for people who are other elementally influenced,
Yeah.
Mhm.
aka.
Yes.
I still would love to
That's
see
where I
just,
thought
like,
they were
this-
going to go with that. They were going to be like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe we could help the void.
Mm.
No, we're helping people on our world. Oh, right. That's good
Well,
too. Yeah.
But even
That's
that,
gotta be more
because
an Eden thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta be.
but the idea of the reveal about tempering was also, in conjunction with that,
Mhm.
really
Yes.
fascinating.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
I had
one thing that
such a
Mhm.
just like those moments where like something clicks
Yeah.
and you're like,
Oh.
And you have to go off on like a lore rant for about an hour and a half.
You gotta go pull up the murder
ethereal
board that you have.
metaphysics. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like red string, tempered question mark.
Yeah.
So after they try the tonics, it's decided that they're going to try to revitalize their incorporeal ether by means of a familiar, and then familiar can kind of amplify the energies from their creator, so they're going to just kind of give them a boost and see what happens. So of course they try this out with Halric, and Ali says like, I want to be the one to do it. So he's like, all right, go get some clay, and you're going to like sculpt me a porksy. And it is the most amazing clay sculpture of a porksy that you have ever seen. And Alphino just starts laughing, and we're just kind of like look at him, we're like, wow, dude,
you're going to die.
We even do like Mike, I went back and I rewatched the cutscene last night, like our character, they do like the double take. They're like, really? Like
we're seriously doing like a
stop.
I love it. Were we just talking last week about how fun it's been seeing them be siblings with one another? I love them ribbing on each other, and I love in like Stormblood the snide comments, the first comments you get about how bad at swimming Alphino is, and like all these little things.
It's vengeance time.
It's nice to see it.
Glug is like, it's okay, it's a porksy as long as you think it's a porksy. Nice like parenting moment. Yeah, it's a picture of okay, sure, yeah.
It's definitely a turkey.
And so she conjures it up and names it Angelo because of Final Fantasy VIII, and also because it was the name of a dog that her and Alphino had growing up. So
Renoa sucks.
There you go.
I mean, true facts. I mean, yeah.
All right.
Just want to.
I like
somebody here likes Renoa.
I mean, I like her. So
all right.
every day.
FF8 was really like the first Final Fantasy I really like dove into back in the day. So I have a soft spot for it.
It was my first too. I love that one.
There we go. Yeah. So you kind of pour some ether into Halric, and he comes back for a minute, says like mother, cries, and then he just kind of goes back to being just how he was before. So
still hate him.
It kind of worked. we need to improve something here, but it kind of worked. And then this is where, like we were saying a little bit earlier, it kind of ties us back. So Halric is obviously dormant, his mind separated from his body. That's kind of like tempering from primals. Remember primals, how they could temper people? And of course, with Alisaie kind of taking the lead on this, she's like, hey, we might be able to use this on Gabu.
I see an incoming rant. Is that what this is?
No.
You ready?
I wasn't gonna rant.
Not for you.
No, it's fine.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
You're like,
I love how Fusion explains like in half a sentence the things that I would take like 20 minutes sidebars.
Yeah, exactly.
And every time he does it, I'm just like,
no, talk. Interrupt him.
I mean, if you want to elaborate, feel free.
That's why you're here, buddy.
We don't have 4 hours.
We do.
We got the time. Two-parter.
We don't. But we should do like a lore and metaphysics show.
Oh man.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yes.
Wow.
Yes. I mean,
I want to.
we got so much of that in Shadowbringers. Like, I think it's always a tough thing, the idea of explaining your system, right? I think we all know the immediate Star Wars one that comes to mind, but it's tough. It's tough. Yeah, it's tough to do it convincingly, right? Because you want to give like fundamental rules that your world operates by, but you don't want to go into so much detail that you're like bludgeoning people over the head with something that almost sounds more ridiculous. But I feel like we hit a good balance of that with Shadowbringers. We've got
and then in some regard too, you also need to keep it vague enough to where you can like do whatever you want later on. Like
But the good thing about 14 and the way they handle again, like, you know, metaphysics and like the baseline rules for the world is that they don't give you the impression they're just making it up as they go along.
Right.
Yeah. They give you the impression those rules have been set like at the ground floor and everything is just sort of like built on top of them, and they're not constantly having to like, you know, move the goalposts and like retcon things. But 5.1 introduced this entirely new concept in etherology that's soul and mind are two different substances, and we've gone from like substance dualism, like sort of Cartesian metaphysics, to a more like tripartite, like Platonic metaphysics, which is really interesting. And again, something I could talk about for hours and hours and hours, but I won't.
It's on the Trello now. So.
Right? I'm just like nodding, and my eyes. I'm just glazed. I'm like, sure, okay, yeah.
Well, but like, it is amazing, and you're right. Like Ethys, they do such an incredible job of setting up the dominoes, so that like when things like all go down and all fall down, it's this incredible chain reaction. And I think that even if this patch wasn't the most, I don't know, it had its high points for sure, but a lot of it was like tying up those loose ends. And I always wondered going through this game, like Gabu is a really sweet character, and I love this character, and obviously he's important for Alisaie's growth emotionally and her stakes, but why do we have so many scenes with him? Why are we getting this demonstrated so in detail with this character? And to then see us use, or see the writers use that as a way to not only like help you have insight into Alisaie and why she may have even been drawn to this location and these people without realizing it, but then also use that as a way to say, well, what if we now knock down all these dominoes of the repercussions that this discovery could have for all of the planes and for primal summoning as a whole and for, you know, ethereology and all these different, you know, components, where now we can kind of have our own stakes and long history with that in this one perfect little thing, which is huge. That's a huge thing too.
And you gotta wonder, I mean, it's you know, Gabu could be like the Crystal Exarch of like 5.3, right? It's like, yeah, we just had this one character, some stuff happened, and we're like, hey, let's go back and we'll make this whole thing about him. And
you never know.
Yeah,
that's a monster kid.
I'm just imagining now in like 2 years time people making like sexy fan art of Gabu.
Oh no.
Oh god, no.
That primal reaction.
6.0, we're gonna go to the new world. The new world just has a really large aspected earth element to it, and that's where we're gonna Gabu is gonna become the Crystal Exarch of the new world, and it's gonna, you know,
Trying to see if there is already sexy fan art of Gabu.
Oh god, no. Dark things that we need to let remain in the shadow.
We all know the rules of the internet. If there weren't before, you just saying that makes it true.
Yeah.
It's gonna
now
exist
there will
now.
be.
That's the point where the multiverse forks, and you have this whole new reality now.
You're the source. How could you?
Oh my gosh.
So after this, Becklug says, okay, you know, we've done the tonic, we've done the familiar stuff. After a little bit more of experimenting and stuff, I can probably figure out how to do kind of the opposite and do stagnation. So we can put that soul in that aura site, and you can do your thing.
Yep.
Meanwhile, back in Kalusia,
what voice is that?
It's like the Super Friends, like the
announcer.
All right.
Yeah.
I got it.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom.
It sounded like something. I just wasn't quite.
I recognize that reference, but I don't know it.
Yeah. Grundy want pants too.
Yes. Commercial.
Cartoon
That was
Network.
the best
Cartoon
commercial.
Network.
That's the one I always think of when I think of like Super Friends. Okay. Anyway, I could go on for that. See, Ethys is over here talking about like actual useful stuff for 20-minute tangents. I want to talk about Brainiac wanting pants. So.
Okay, it's all right.
So you go to check in on Yulmore, and Julia Chai has not seen her husband. He was kind of voted to be the one to kind of be the mayor of Yulmore, and he just kind of vanished. So as you know, being the expert saviors of the world we are, we need to go and just find him because we're good at.
It seemed like she was more looking for. Wow, I want to say Aldino. It's not it. Alphino.
Oh, yeah.
She was looking for the new character Aldino who's in game.
Yeah. She's like, I need my good boy to help find my husband.
Yeah, exactly.
They're friends.
Yeah.
And adoptive parents, but you know,
weird.
Yeah, this this is probably one of the weakest narrative links for me in this one. I was like,
Sure.
we need to go to Yulmore for sure, but it almost felt like it would have been more compelling for me to just like have a moment with our character where they're like, well, we're good here and everything's under control. What do you want to do? And the Warrior of Light is like, maybe I should go look in on that place where they were like eating people.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go do like I'm gonna go
Make
do
sure
that.
they haven't, like,
You just teleport in. Be like, can I just have everybody's attention? Are you still eating people? No. Okay, great.
It's like,
Can I get a
Lord of
couple
the Flies yet? Is there a conch?
That could go really bad. Are you still
Yeah.
eating people? Yes, come here.
Oh. All right.
man.
Well, I didn't want to. All right, just give me 10 minutes. I need to queue up a duty finder. We're gonna take care of this. And
Yeah. We'll just need to handle this real quick.
and while I'm here, can I got some tomes. Can I get a new pair of pants? Thank you. I brought it back.
Full
See what I did there?
circle.
Yeah.
All right. So eventually,
And my puns are bad? Come on.
Eventually, you track down Chai Nuz. He's been kind of going around all the little towns in Cluja, talking to them, seeing what they need, what they want, seeing how they would like things to change. And eventually, you kind of find out that he's been looking for a man named Rendon, who was an advisor in Yulmore back in the day, before the dark times, before Vothri. And
Was he
so,
2 Vothri? And then
No,
he was
his-
like, oh, Vothri sucks. Bye.
it was his dad, I thought.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Valthru was like,
Mhm.
get the
Okay.
heck out of here.
I guess they were both Lord
Yeah.
Vothri? I don't know. I'm
Well,
not a
it
we
was-
word
don't have
person.
a
Yeah.
name. We don't have a name for his dad.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, I don't think we do.
Vothri
No.
Senior. We
It was literally like in the cutscene we've got with him and Emmett. It was literally just like Mayor of Yulmore.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
They're like we're never using him ever again. We don't need to spend the time and give him a name. He'll just be the
Yeah,
mayor of
mhm.
Yulmore.
One-dimensional character.
well, it's I mean, maybe
Yeah.
we could make an argument. This is me going for a stretch, but I mean, with the corruption that happened in society between his reign, right? And we have to assume that part of it must have been functional. Because my
Yeah.
big question with this was, why are you going to the advisor of the guy that set this stuff up so that his bizarre son could eventually become this monster and then feed people to people and then do all this stuff, right? But we have to assume that at some point it was functioning well and that these advisors were actually useful and
It was
that,
actually
you know,
good until
I was wondering.
Emmett Self
Yeah.
came along.
Yeah.
and then
they
it
were
was this
fighting against the
corruption.
senators. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yulmore was this kind of like bulwark against, the end times. And then Vothri just kind of like threw it in and like leaned into it. And it seems like Rendon kind of pieced out like at the time that his advice got replaced with Emmett Selk's advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, all right,
Same.
all right,
I'm
I'm
out.
out. Bye-bye.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could be that some of that, like, not naming him is almost, I mean, maybe almost intentional. I don't know. I can't really speak for it 100%. But, I mean, there is this strange gap in Yulmore's history where life changed so drastically that that old way of life is almost to the point where, I mean, people are literally, like, scrounging through the dirt just to try and pick it
Yeah.
up again.
Mhm.
Which is, I don't know, it's an interesting little detail. I don't know if it's intentional or if, he's just an NPC that they were like, whatever, like, it doesn't matter. But also, can I just take 1 second, Fusion? Because I do want to say the fact that you call him Chai Nuzzle, Nuz, like
I didn't
Nuzzle.
say. Oh, I mean,
It's
it's two Z's.
Yeah, it's cute, isn't it? I was thinking
He's
that as well.
snuggly. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's snuggly boy, you know?
I did not like
Snuggly for somebody.
I did not
I mean,
like him. And
Tomato,
this-
tomato.
Yeah. This made me
I
like
always
him though.
said it news. Oh,
I
my
said
God.
news too, because noon.
Sure.
Okay.
Mm.
But do
I
we
would
know?
not nuzzle
No.
Chai for the record. He's not my kind of guy. Anyway, so
I feel like
Rendon's
if you
like,
got in the way with the nuzzle, you too
Oh.
would have a broken spine.
Yeah, you would die.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dulia will
Yeah.
kill you.
yeah, don't
Some
don't
end
stand
game
between Chai
snuggling
and
there.
Julia.
You gotta be
Yeah.
you gotta be geared, you gotta be prepped, you gotta have food, pots on, and
Yeah.
then you can maybe withstand the snuggle fest.
Sorry, what's your eye level? Nope, you're too low. You're gonna die.
No,
Sorry.
no.
So Rendon's talking to Chai a little bit, and he says, "Look, I'll help you, but like, you got to go through a test, right? You know, I I don't really want to jump back into this.
That's how we do in quests.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. And so Chai's like, I have a great idea. We're gonna like reopen the stoneworks, and we're gonna use Talos to help kind of rebuild the area and all this stuff. So instead of building new ones, he's like, hey, there's all these like random Talos is kind of like chilling. Let's just like use those. And so you have this kind of like little mini game where he's like hiding behind. It totally reminds me of like a Metal Gear Solid like camera, like hiding behind the quarter angle, and you're like, okay, now go. And you're giving him the okay. He goes up there, he throws the thing, and then you have some Talos. And you go back to Yulmar with them, and everyone's like freaking out. They're like, oh, call the guard. And then they realize like, oh, these aren't going to kill us. Great, thanks.
Oh, good.
I love how he didn't call ahead. He just like marched up.
He just showed up, yeah.
I also liked how there were three of them.
Yeah.
There were three of them, and one guy was like, call the guard. One of them ran to call the guard. The other two stayed and just watched. And then as the Talos were approaching, more citizens showed up with 2 guards.
Yeah. We got this.
Like, this is not safe, friends. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, it ended up being safe, but from just general perception, like.
And then we just like pop out behind him. We're like, hey guys, it's just us. And everyone's like, oh, thank God.
Fine.
Thank God, because we made a bad decision.
Yeah. So
you've just been pumped.
Chai gives a speech to everybody, and it sounds like Gilmore's gonna be okay. They're not gonna eat people anymore. They're gonna work with everybody, and it's gonna be fine. I think I'm curious if.
I mean, they didn't know, right, that they were eeating people.
No.
So now that they know that they were eating people,
now that they know that they were eating people, there's a food. There's a food shortage because they're not eating people.
I think there's even a line in there. Meal is obviously not an option.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah. Hunger. Mule.
Yeah. I'll
all
take
right.
the hunger. Thank you.
We'll make this work. We'll make this work.
It's almost like
that's not what happens on islands when people end up on islands. Sometimes they'll eat people.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we had to go check in on them.
You say that like so calm and casually.
It's like not saying from experience.
No. I've never eaten people.
That's like, when you get stranded on an island and you're with your friends and you get real hungry and you have to eat a couple.
You just think to yourself, hashtag Gilmore life. Let's just.
Oh God.
We're still making that a thing.
Oh God, no God.
Yeah.
But it really is when he says, "Oh, so like meals are not an option anymore." Obviously, I kind of read that like, "Hey, meals not still an option, is it?"
Yeah.
We
can't do that, right?
Interesting point.
Right.
Right.
There's. I mean, there's obviously this shortage, and resources are like an actual concern.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's unnerving because as you sit there and you're thinking about this, like, you can see how somebody might choose to just use this, right? Like, we don't have good land. It's been corrupted. The balance is all wrong. We can't even grow crops. We don't even know, if, at this point, how we might do that. Like, because we'd have to leave the city, and society has gone so strange. But what we do have a lot of are sin eaters. Like, and it's terrible, right? But I mean, it is an interesting little throwaway line almost in there that seems kind of funny, but when you think about it, it's like that's how bad things were. And it was an easy way out, but like now obviously they're trying to find a better way to deal with that. Like,
not like I like eating people, but like maybe
are they really people anymore once they're sin eaters, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're processed. Yeah. it'd be a
it's
waste,
like
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
seems an awful waste.
Not a commentary on smoking, but it's like smoking. Like, people still smoke even though they know it's bad for them. You still eat meal even though it's not good for you. Like,
people still smoke even though they know that cigarettes are made of people.
Listen, there's no real world equivalent, I hope.
Yeah. But I mean, it's scary that is almost a threat, like that it's almost there. Like, if we can't make this work, what are we going to have to do? And I think pushing for a future where we're reclaiming, like in tandem with the raid set, trying to replenish and reinfuse the earth, like it brings up some interesting sort of discussions about, we have to recover from this, but how do we start making that happen? Not just in this big, heroic way, but also in this mundane way.
Yeah.
Sidebar, episode title: Cigarettes are made of people.
I was, yeah. I could see that,
Fusion's like,
man.
no.
I was trying to find a way to force more Sweeney Todd in there because I just think of
Okay.
that couple and I think of
Yeah.
Sweeney Todd. I just love it.
Our friends in chat are on the same level as you, talking about
Okay,
meat
good.
pies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did also see in chat here, Renoir, who put something in. I'm curious. I think this resonates, and I think it's true. The last words that Halric says that we mentioned actually being the same words that he heard Tesleen repeat before she was consumed.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Those
I think
words are
I think
fresh.
it's true. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, like, because that was the last kind of big traumatic event he saw, so he was kind of there, but kind of not there. And when we kind of like pop him out of it for a second, he's like, "Oh yeah, that was the thing that happened," and that's why you get the tears. And he's like, "Oh, yeah.
Still not forgiven."
Well, yeah,
Well,
he's
he's sort of demonstrating with that, and again, this is something we can apply to tempering, is that the person's mind is still in there somewhere. Like they're not like undead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just they don't have any control over their body.
Yeah. Which
I just
is
realized
an extra level of terrifying. Yeah.
Which is extra interesting.
waking coma.
It's extra interesting though with that separation of soul and mind that we were talking about, because if your body, so we're assuming that whatever animates your physical form or provides energy or life, has something tied to that ethereal balance, because obviously you can be warped. So your soul, if you will, the balances of energies versus your mind, which if separated from that still exists in some state or can be put to rest or in, a stasis or the fact that people could have been, gosh, even like sin eaters, but possibly if there is some part of that soul or mind.
Well, Tesleen demonstrated that when we fought her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's a scary thought, right? Like every sin eater we killed still has like a human mind in the back of it somewhere, just going crazy.
Yeah.
Now I sad.
But we can still eat them, right?
Yeah,
like, if we have to.
Yeah.
Like, not saying it's not an option.
Yeah. So Yulmore is good for right now.
Really quick.
Uh-huh.
I realized how accidentally potent the phrase "still not forgiven" is.
Yeah. No, I was like, because he's not a sin eater yet. Yeah.
I'm just saying, shouldn't it happens to line up?
Do you guys think we'll go back to Yulmore, or do you think that this kind of finalized kind of their state?
I mean, we have to go back to see if they've found solutions, right? Because they were like, we're going to come up with solutions, and then we're going to be a good city-state.
Do we, though? Because, I mean, we had this thinking back to, like, Doma and stuff, right? It's just like, they're going to be fine.
But we actually went back to Doma and, like, built it, right?
But there wasn't, like, this big grand, like, okay, we're done, and everything's going to be great.
We're going to have a thing where we go to Yulmore and rip out all the purple shit, right?
I'm thinking of Ishgard, and Ishgard in 3.3 has 6 weeks later. Oh look, we got a parliament now. Cool, bye.
Yeah,
bye. That's true. That is very true.
Come back 2 expansions later, so we're gonna do like a Yulmore restoration in like 7.3.
Yeah, I was thinking we restored Kalusia. Like that would be cool.
Why would we go back there? We don't care. We live on the source now. We don't want to go back. It's like
we're the warriors of light/darkness. That's our job.
Yeah, we go wherever the hell we're told.
Yeah, exactly.
Wherever somebody needs us to do mundane tasks, we will go there.
Exactly.
We will be there. Yeah,
I hear someone's gonna make a feast there, so obviously we've got to be there.
Right. But we also have to do the 30 quests leading up to the feast. Don't forget that. That's a very important part.
Right.
And no people.
I don't ever want to go to a feast in Yulmore.
Never.
Yeah.
I felt like that was a wrap up. I mean, it seems like there's so many other places that we can even investigate on the source if we're going to be going through this patch content. But we're getting more and more about Garlemald. It seems like they're just kind of trying to steer us. But, and we could talk about this more towards the end too. I was surprised because, let's say with these scenes, there's so many personal connections characters on the source, and we're the only out can move back and forth. So it does make me wonder, like, are any of the scions not going to want to leave? Like, is anybody going to have qualms with leaving this place behind?
I reckon Thancred would.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, I think Thancred and potentially Y'shtola, because she's kind of grounded, and now she's got her buddy over in
her cult
in Raktika now. Yeah,
Cult,
she's the leader of a cult. Yeah, she doesn't want to leave.
The problem is we don't quite understand like what the stakes are with this degeneration of the link between like their soul and their body, because on one hand they could be fine, they could just end up like Ascians, just be bodiless, or they could die. And we have no idea, and as far as we can tell, we certainly get the impression that none of the scions have any idea as well. And if when we get Rianger being like, oh, I don't know what'll happen, then that's concerning.
It's interesting you mention the Ascians, because I'm wondering now. I mean, the base like lore of the Ascians, right? They are was it the Scions of Darkness, right, from 12, or was it the And so then you had that kind of like
the Scions. Yeah, the name. Yeah, the Scions.
And then the other side of that was like the Espers from 12. You know, you got and so I'm wondering if they would fudge that a little bit, and we get our Scions are the counterparts to the Ascians in that sense, maybe.
That would be interesting.
Right, where they actually give up their bodies.
I mean, on the other side of that, I mean, once we kind of like fix the issue, in theory, then they could just travel freely, maybe. Right? You know, I mean, Tia figured it out, so
like it was kind of pointed out pretty early on in the 5.0 Msq that Minfilia had basically just become an Ascian.
So will they do like the whole reborn thing?
Yeah.
Will that be a thing they start to do as well?
Maybe.
They used to change outfits, now they change bodies.
It's fine. It's fine.
Gosh, can you imagine what would happen if they lost their bodies and like new Thancred literally just became Thancred, but he just was inhabiting his body? Riol just becomes some sort of like Thancred hybrid. Or I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting, especially if they keep like broadening the scope of our stories to these other planes of existence, because if we are going to be doing that and we want these characters to be going between them, there has to be some vehicle set up for them to be able to do that. So, I mean, obviously we've been troubleshooting a little bit here with the splitting your souls off your body and stuff, but
But the problem is if they do that, they need to bind their souls to a crystal of light, a crystal of darkness, or like some equivalent medium. But
next time on Aetheryte Radio.
Bind your soul to the warrior of light. There you go. It's fine.
There you go.
Just become his.
No more pressure.
Look how excited you look right now.
Huh?
No, that would just be wild and bad. It would be terrible. Like, there's already so much discussion about the Warrior of Light possibly becoming some sort of primal, which now obviously we have all of these redefinitions of what that could mean and what it could mean.
I was waiting for that.
But no, I mean, that would be pretty insane. I mean, if you think about Hydaelyn and Zodiark and everything we know about them now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do we combat them? What do we do in the future? Is this going to be another summoning? Is there the possibility that one individual could transform a la Emmett Selk into some sort of avatar or guardian force that could take them on? That'll be later, and we'll deal with that a different day.
I love everything about it. I don't care.
All right. So, getting back on track.
Oh, yeah.
Feel more is fine. They're not going to eat people anymore. They're going to trade farms, and they'll be fine.
That's fine.
We go back.
I have a question.
And,
Sorry, I'm totally throwing things off again. The farm that's in Wright, was that there the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's actually a side quest there's a quest chain there that talks about sorry, this is just I did a lot of the side quests. That actually talks about the farming there and the soil and the fact that it had been altered, and so it wasn't very receptive, but that they were having some pretty good luck in some areas trying to like retill.
Yeah, they grow barley there for brewing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
'Cause
We
yeah,
don't
so-
have food, but we have beer.
I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
that's fine.
there's a side quest that's literally like, hey, there's the Yulmarans want some booze, so
Yeah.
they're gonna help you.
I mean, look, if we're gonna be starving, we might as well be drunk too. So
Well, but when you think about it, like beer was, oh, please correct me if anybody is more of a history nerd than me, but beer was used originally as a way to feed massive quantities of people because it has yeast and it has, I mean, it has calories and it has like, but it's just in liquid form. Yeah.
So wheat beer, for instance, like a lot of the Bavarian wheat beers have a tradition in the old monasteries where the monks were only allowed to eat bread and drink water. And they were like, well, hey, wheat beer is just like a reconstituted bread and water diet.
It's a bread
But
water.
that's literally what they did. So they started brewing wheat.
That's so cool.
Delicious bread water.
Cheeky Bavarians.
So we meet up with everybody, and they inform us that brilliant idea they had with the Aetheryte is not going to work. So we're like, oh, okay, great. I'm glad that we were able to solve that with this patch.
Yeah.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah.
So we go back to the source. We talk to Kryle.
I
We're
mean,
like,
I don't
hey,
know.
so
I don't know crap about Aether really. Just
Yeah.
the small bits I remember. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, guys.
so yeah, that's a no
We didn't
go.
loop back around and they were like, this isn't gonna work. I was like, whoa, okay, awesome.
Okay, cool.
I mean, not awesome, but cool. I remember the thing.
You go back to Kryle, and then Astidian finally shows up, and we realize that he is who they had helping out, and we're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, boy, I was in Garlemald, and I have seen some things.
Just got in
And
from
so
Garlemald.
yeah, he's
Boy, it's my
before he can
sometime.
really even tell us,
Get out.
us and Kryle, we're just gonna go ahead and echo you, and we'll see the whole thing. Emperor's dead. Xenos is back to being in his own body. He's still just Xenos. He's weird. He's creepy.
Crazy.
Like, what is the
I
agenda?
love that sentence in the outline. Just
The
that
outline
sentence.
also still
Just
really
done.
creepy and weird.
Yep, that's it.
We get to, this was my favorite part of the patch, like hands
Oh,
down.
yes.
We get to
Oh,
RP Astidian going through
You know
the palace.
What sucks about this?
What?
What sucks about this is the fact that we were playing as Astinian means that Kryle got to play as Gaius.
Yeah, like come on, man.
No, I believe doesn't Kryle say in the dialogue after that, which is something that I wanted to talk with all of you about because I was really curious about this. She says afterwards, I saw it, but I didn't witness or live it in the same way that you did. And that was a really weird little tidbit for me because I was curious immediately that I was like, what if Astinian has a fragment of the original soul that we had? And I was just, like freaking out a little bit.
Astidian is one of the reflections of the
Astinian literally can't have a fragment of our soul.
No,
I know.
Yeah.
But we have more soul than Kryle does now.
Yeah, which
we
made me
do.
then wonder if
that's
that
true.
somehow does tie into the echo in some way, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I
would
mean,
guess
if you think about the other roleplay fights that we've done, those haven't been via echo. Those have been, meanwhile in the burn, like this is what's going on with Alphino. This is what's going on here and it's just us playing out that scene. This wasn't us playing it via echo. And so that's interesting that way,
Yeah.
Maybe, okay. We're just going to
Yeah,
start
I was
controlling
curious.
people.
Also,
We don't need
he
people.
was-
We don't need our subjects to eat other people to control them. We're just gonna, find a couple more
gonna hijack.
souls and yeah.
But yeah, all of that was awesome, and I
Yeah.
nerded very hard,
It
and
was
then I
so
got
much
super
more fun to play.
excited because we got to actually be in Garlemald in a sense for once,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it was so cool. I was just running around the halls, running up against the glass windows, just staring down
me
them.
out.
I mean, it's so cool because we've just seen it in these cutscenes, and of course, everybody keeps hypothesizing that someday we're gonna go there, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to kind of experience it in a way that was more direct. And plus playing as Astinian was so fun. I mean, he's been a
Yes.
character that's just there for so much of the story and had this role in Heavensward. And I love that he's still a part of it. And his little trolling cameos in Stormblood.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to see him continue to come into the fold with everybody and be that part of the narrative. I liked it. It was good.
Yeah. I think at this point I am fully expecting like whatever the Eureka equivalent content is going to be. I would not be surprised if it was something in Garlemald. Because if you think about it, I mean, up until this point, like, Garlemald for us has been a single room shown in cutscenes throughout, like, all of 2.0, right? It's just, here's the throne room. They're in Garlemald. Okay, great. And then, like, the end of Stormblood, they're like, here's another kind of, like, Garlemaldish looking place. And now we have a street. We're going through the actual palace now. Like, we see a little bit more, you know, with Xenos hanging on rooftops. We actually have these areas that are being built. So maybe, like, we jump into the, you know, after we figure out what's going on with our friends on the source, or on the first, we say, hey, let's go, and here's this cool instance area content. We're just going to jump right into the Garlean Civil War and just see what happens. Like, let's... I mean, because that's an idea that I've been, you know, I had talked about a while ago. Or once we go to Garlemald, if they have some kind of weird battle or conflict system, right?
That'd be cool.
What if it's the Void instead?
I mean, that'd also be cool.
I feel like if we were gonna do that, the opportune time would have been when we were like about to like overdose on like light ether. That's always like that's my what if, right? It's not like, oh, I feel terrible. I ingested all these light wardens. Let's go fight Emmett Selk at the bottom of the ocean. No, I want to go over to the Void and just throw up and just see what happens.
It out,
right? Yeah. Let's just see what happens. Cloud of Darkness is like, oh, you're back again. Hold on, I got something different for you this time.
They pulled old content to come up with new storyline for Eureka, right? The next bunch of old content is the World of Darkness stuff in that vein.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know.
Say what you will about Final Fantasy XIV being formulaic.
My absolute favorite thing about everything that just happened in the last, I don't know, like 5 minutes was just watching Ethys' face while we were all while the tin hats came out, and he was just like, well, looking up at the sky. Oh, that one sounds crazy. I don't know about. Well,
I need to make a button for the stream that just puts little tin hats on top of everybody's frame, and we just like,
That's good.
like we're just going full tinfoil hat right now.
I mean, it's interesting though to think about because what is that next little tidbit? I mean, Eureka, for its flaws, I thought there was some really good stuff in there and some really good ideas and an extension of that little tiny story that kept being mentioned just over and over and over. This mysterious island. And then when we finally got, and I was like, it's the mysterious island. Like, I was so excited. So I feel like there has to be some kind of thread there. There's got to be something if they decide they want to do something in that same vein, or if they completely shake it up. I mean, they could do something 100% different, or we could get, I mean, we have no idea, but.
I mean, I guess that depends on, right? Because this is all obviously leading up into 6.0. So a lot of people were thinking 5.0 was going to be Garlemald, which wasn't the case, but it's going to start to trickle into Garlemald, right? Because obviously we have, you know, it's like Civil War right now. Everybody's fighting it, you know, each other. There's the talk in one of the cutscenes about where'd it go? People saying that Lord Nerva is going to take the throne because Xenos doesn't want it because he's doing whatever the hell he's doing, you know, at this point. And so it's really like, is that going to be this weird kind of side content that we're going to kind of move our way into, and then it opens up in 6.0, or is it going to be like this, like Alamigo, like we waited so long and it's a dungeon and this like totally empty part of a map, and then it's like Garlemald is just all weird side content, and then 6.0 is New World. Like,
what if we get something totally wild? And you're going to have to remind me of her name because she wasn't one of my favorites from Heavensward, and I will admit that, and I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I know I'm wrong. Emmerich's BFF.
Lucian.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She's an I keep saying interesting.
Yeah.
But she's kind of a little loose thread that I think they could use to get us into Garlemald. And what would be even crazier is if there was something there where, you know, maybe this has no basis in any reality. This would be just me. This really is me thinking about
hat icon. Yeah.
I know, right? But this thinking about how would you set up Garlemald to be a stable part of the world, right? So my brain immediately went to what connections do we have that would have some sort of investment in the people and in an alliance and in changing, and my mind immediately went to her. And it's possible we don't know much about her, but maybe she's part of one of the noble families and she took shelter. Maybe could she be a part of the succession war? I don't know, but that'd be kind of cool. There's some things in there that I think
feel like they've already dabbled too much into that. Like, this person's actually like a distant relative of this person. Yeah.
Or Gaius.
Sid, Nero.
Yes, Sid, Nero. But Gaius.
Yeah,
Gaius
right.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yes. I mean, I hope so.
Stuff will happen. We'll kill Xenos because of course we will, and then everyone will be like, so somebody needs to take care of Garmold, and it'll be like, Gaius will be like, all right, fine, I'll do it.
I
like,
got it. All right.
He's always been like stubbornly loyal to the throne. It'll be
yeah.
It's true.
I don't know if you know this, but I used to like conquest guys.
Yeah.
But he's had his own character arc. He's grown though. We've seen him grow and change, and that's been demonstrated in all of the patches. Even the fact that he went back in there with Estinian. It's really interesting that we've seen a lot of these things change.
Going back to Estinian real quick too. So we're battling through the palace, and then we have a boss fight with Arch Ultima.
What?
Like what? It's Ultima, and it's got like a guy kind of on the back of him sticking out, but he's like got black eyes.
One of the clones,
There was a lot of upper butt happening in that.
Yes, definitely. There was a lot of that.
So much. So much upper butt.
Oh my god.
I was not expecting. Now, a question for all of you. Is this a 1.0 tie-in? Is this because I kept seeing people, I did not play 1.0. So I kept seeing people talk about the fact that if you were a 1.0 player thing in this, that was a tie-in. Does anyone know what that was? And was it Arch Ultima?
I didn't play it.
I have no idea.
No. Okay.
I have no idea what they're talking about.
Okay. I felt
not to say that they're wrong. I just have no idea what they're talking about.
Somebody might be able to give me more insight on this. I have no idea. But when it came up, I was just sitting there going, that man's butt is everywhere. Also, he's stuck on that Ultima. How did he get stuck on there?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is really, really important. But I'm missing
an accident.
Yeah.
It's like a guy that was like working on it and just accidentally like welded himself to it. It was like,
it's like a janitor. He's just like,
well, I guess I'm here now. Yeah.
He's just like cleaning one of the upper like scaffoldings, and he just falls off.
Yeah, no, he's one of those guys who falls off the scaffolding. He actually fell.
Yeah.
Ultima.
Then Ultima happened. That's how you get an Ultima. You have to be really careful about it.
Maybe the fact that we fought this is their way of saying, hey, so we're not doing it now, but we are going to come back and talk about the Heart of Sabik.
Oh, they have
Remember
to.
that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so they're playing around with Ultima things, right? So maybe that'll come into play later.
That's why the dude was in there, because they don't have the Heart of Sabik.
Yeah.
The Heart of Sabik is effectively like
it's bad enough that they're child.
It's bad enough that they're trying to make their own like artificial like echo. Now they're trying to make their own like Heart of Sabik, right? They have this,
Well, they have succeeded at the artificial echo. I mean, that's Xenos. Oh, he just won't die, and it drives me crazy. But because of a lot of the stuff that we get with him at the end of Stormblood, I mean, his most interesting moments for me were at the end of Stormblood, and I was going his entire like discussion about that.
Yeah.
1 second, I've got sirens.
Yeah. That's...
it's interesting.
For the recording, I just wanted to let them go by.
You're fine.
It's one
of those things where with Stormblood, I know I've talked about this a lot. It's the idea of Xenos has been like really the only person that's like repeatedly beat us, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to the end of Stormblood, the end of 4.0, and it's like, all right, now I'm like hanging out with Shinryu and stuff. Oh, you beat me. You got me. And then like he like slits his own throat, and then he's not dead. He like they bring him back, and things are happening. And it's weird, and he's weird. And I have no idea where this
in
is
his dying moments, he's thinking, they said they'd be my friend. What have I done?
But I think he's going to be the uniting thread, right? Because of his weird discoveries about the, everything with primals, and the idea that somebody who has the echo may be able to harness a primal, which is the whole Shinryu thing. But now we're kind of thinking, because of what we know from Shadowbringers, it could honestly be that because they're a more complete soul, they're able to almost manipulate Aether in this way that they can, transmorph into something or become something or control this sort of force, if you will. And then we've got all of that tied into the Ultima weapon, which has made its return yet again, which is supposed to be the ultimate sort of controller of primals, or the only thing that can, consume them or deal with them. So I feel like there's all these like little pieces of information on all those sides that somehow are gonna like come together. And this is kind of a hint of that in this instance that we got. Which
I think this is all leading. We're finally gonna get free company primals.
Yes.
Shut up, you.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes. Yes.
Remember that? I remember.
Don't do this to
that.
Rook. You're making it too exciting.
Don't like hurt a tendon or like dislocate a shoulder there with that reach.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope you stretched.
Oh my god.
All right. So we do all that stuff.
Volatile prototype. I took a screenshot because why not? It's the like headers. Volatile prototype arch. Ultimate.
Yeah.
So this is an experimental phase.
Yeah. So we do that.
Very
fighting on the streets. Xenos is chilling on the rooftops of Garlemald, just watching everybody fighting each other. And he is greeted by a person in a white robe, not Elidibus, as far as we know. It's a different white robe. And he says that watching them fight is amusing, like dogs herding cattle to the slaughterhouse. And Xenos does this creepy eye thing, and he says that, Hugh, your soul is, who are you? And he says, before your majesty, I am but another dog, lost in want of a new master, a hunting dog, if you should wish it so, for I know full well the prey you would seek next, Zodiark. So it's like, okay. Like,
well, he's crazy about finding somebody who can beat him up, right?
Yeah. Well, you already mentioned this at the end of 5.0. He basically implied that he was going to try and take the power of Zodiac and compel us to try and take the power of Heinlein.
So that we can,
so that we can.
he just wants to fight. He just wants a
He's
solid
such an
fight.
anime.
This isn't even my final form. Zodiark, where you at? Come get over here.
What if you're just like, nah, you cool Zodiark, whatever. I don't wanna.
So, nah.
But my important fight, nah.
Ethys, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly what that setup is, and it's funny because once you said that, I went, oh yeah, no duh, that's what that was. But when I was in the instant, I was like, does he? And I was trying to remember back. I was like, does he know that Zodiark is like a thing he could go do, or a person,
well, he knows
or an
that
entity?
Zodiac's a primal now because
Right.
Elidibus told him.
Yeah.
So I mean, the most obvious direction this to take is Xenos thinking that he can do to Zodiac what he did to Shinryu.
I guess that's maybe what the Ultimas are for.
Possibly, that could tie in with the Ultima of the Heart of Sabik. Could be like a
here's the other question though. I think in that regard, if you're talking about that, Xenos doesn't want anything to do with the Empire at this point. This is something they were working on before, so he's not going to use that stuff. If he wants to be able to do it by himself.
He'll use it if it helps him.
Yeah, he'll use it if it helps him in the same way that he used Shinryu. And
that's
like
His father also knew, though, right? So. And he was trying to prevent all that junk. So.
Yeah. Well,
and
he was trying to prevent the Black Rose.
Emerge.
Yeah.
Just because he thought that was like not sporting. like literally was like, no, that's not cool.
Are we talking about Xenos or his father? Xenos. Okay, I was talking about
Xenos in relation to his.
I'm talking about Varys. He was trying to prevent the rejoining, so having stuff built to try and
Varys was trying to facilitate the rejoining,
right? So that we could, so that we could be super, full soul.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So the guy in white, a lot of people are talking. A lot of people are talking like he's got a beef with Zodiac and he's like trying to help Xenos destroy Zodiac, and people are like, oh, where could that come from? I think that's like entirely the wrong reading of it. I think he's baiting Xenos.
Yeah.
I think he's baiting Xenos into like believing that Xenos can again like take possession of Zodiac and control him in the way that he can.
It's a long con is what it is. They've just been playing with him the whole time, and he's like, oh, I'm awesome now, and they're like, you're an idiot.
And course, like Xenos is
I mean, he
not
is.
going to be able to do that,
Mhm.
and all it's going to do
Yeah.
is facilitate giving Zodiac a vessel to sort of like
Mhm.
skip the last couple of rejoinings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
I
where
can
we're
see
going to go in 5.3, I reckon.
Sure.
Okay.
And that
Um,
makes sense to me. Yeah.
But who is this guy, and what's up with the hue of his soul?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was curious about which master he believes he serves, because he talks about the fact that he doesn't have one now, which then immediately made me
Elidibus.
kind of.
Yeah.
He's
Oh, yeah.
Elidibus?
Elidibus
Okay.
does this thing where he collects warriors of light and
Mhm.
like shards of ancient souls from
Yeah.
other worlds.
Oh, okay.
With Unakalheim with silver.
Right.
Mhm.
And this person, I think, is almost definitely going to be another one of those.
Mhm.
There are some speculations floating out there that this dude could be another fragment of our soul.
Yeah.
And that could be why it gave Xenos pause, or it could be a fragment of Xenos' soul, or it could be someone who partially rejoined or wholly rejoined.
Yeah.
But I think it's definitely one of Elidibus's puppets acting in bad faith here to bait Xenos.
Mhm.
And speaking of Elidibus, when we see Ardbert,
Yeah.
his corpse. So the corpses of all the warriors of light from the first, they were dug up by Vothri under instruction of Emmett, and turned into the Sin Eaters that we fight in the role quests.
Yes.
Arbert's corpse was not. It's still there. And that's Elidibus walking around in Arbert's corpse. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it.
Yeah.
And he's talking about hope, and he's talking about like light and stuff like that, because he's trying to bring things back towards those rejoining
Yes,
connections.
exactly.
Mhm.
The only other thing that I thought was like, well, maybe this is that warrior that he was going to bring, and they look like Ardbert, or like something like that. And he's manipulated them to thinking that this will save your world, or this will get you back. Like. But I think the body of Ardbert being possessed is the more likely scenario. But like in that moment, I was like, wait,
destroy Elidibus.
Why isn't he a
yeah,
zombie?
not at all.
Or bones?
Why isn't he more bones?
Well, I mean, keep in mind though too. I mean, Ascians can change what they look like.
Yes, that's
Yeah, they can like.
So he is
regenerate.
bones.
I mean, he might be. Yeah,
Glamored bones.
we have a bit of a there's a bit of a question mark in that whole process, because we know that all of his allies were obviously destroyed by the flood of light, but Ardbert himself was kind of spared in some kind of way, and then
No, you have things to do.
and then like the pieces in between that and the steps, I think his body could easily be what it is. I actually kind of thought the same as you originally, Aldino, where I went, oh, maybe this is, I didn't know how literal they were being.
Sure.
Is this Ardbert, or is this just the player character, like the player spirit that maybe has even come from somewhere else, or might be another fragment? But it seemed too pointed, its location where it was, the fact that he shows up there, and we know, like Ethys pointed out, that there's the precedent of the corpses. The fact that it's really ominous, but in like a very weird way, and it looks so distinctively like him, to the point where, I mean, we've spent a whole expansion looking at him. It's definitely him, So I think that makes more sense, that he's either being possessed. Elidibus would make sense, but that there may be something that happens there with his own reanimation.
Well,
How thoroughly? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, over the course of just 5.0, we've become exponentially more powerful and more like knowledgeable in the sort of truth behind everything that's going on. Elidibus is definitely on a timer in regards to like how long he's going to be able to stop us and destroy us. And he was already trying to do it as Xenos. And I think he's gotten desperate. I think he's possessed Ardbert's body. I think this is going to facilitate in the narrative us finally destroying Elidibus and being able to like move on beyond 5.3, to the next thing, and the next antagonist, and the next story arc.
But this is the big thing for me. And I feel like as we look ahead and we're coming out of these patches, right? And we're coming out of the fact that we've just finished Shadowbringers, which is huge. our perception and Emmett Selk and our knowledge of, Amarot and the world that was, I think that these are massive issues. And up until this point, all that we've known about them, all we've known about this force with the Ascians is that they were evil and they wanted to do bad stuff. But now we know that there is something so much bigger to them and to their motivations. Oh man, I'm just really hoping that we get to explore less of the find and kill narrative and more of the almost, reclaiming our own memories or being able to negotiate or discuss. Or if we're talking about tempering and we think that maybe the Ascians were tempered by the very god that they summoned, can we reverse their tempering?
Sure.
Could we make them allies? Could we, or is, there's just so many, there's just so many questions. And so it's really, oh man, I love when narratives get into that gray area. I think we have some lead writers right now that thrive in that space.
Gray area.
Oh man. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens, because they are not just villains to us anymore. These are people or spirits that were once friends. And that's powerful.
That's the big part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's how we're going to
really
finally
excited.
kill Elidibus, is by killing Argbert. Right?
Yeah,
that's going to be that
torture.
emotional tie.
Yeah, it's just torture.
I mean, he's already dead. It's fine.
I mean, he's chilling with us. We're all one.
Yeah.
The idea of untempering the Ascians, well, untempering Elidibus, because he's the only one left, is definitely compelling. But what we would find once we untempered him is that what tempered him in the first place was his own ideals. He hasn't been tempered by someone else. All the tempering for the Ascians did to them was force them to commit to and take responsibility for this ideal they had in this thing they put in motion.
I would argue that, though. I'm gonna argue it, mostly because I think that the conditions of their summoning were not exactly normal, right? While I think there were definitely reasons and their own personal values. Obviously, as we've seen with all primals, the idea of summoning comes from your own desires in some regard. But we most often see it go awry, going back to our little buddy, our Titan buddy, and everything that happened there with Gabu. It's usually born out of fear, panic. It's born out of some sort of
cities burning.
Yeah, I have to do this to preserve or to somehow claim something. And we see that even with that, the primals that are summoned don't always, I think, reflect the nuance of a person. This is going to be, I'm trying to put this into words here, a person who is outside of just that moment, if that makes sense, right? They tend to embody an ideal, and then that ideal becomes the precedent. It becomes the overwhelming thing. It becomes the tempering force that alters emotion, as opposed to, maybe we get through that moment of panic and something in just a regular moment, if we had the power of, our original selves, would be very different.
I mean, that's something that I would love to see them explore.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
I mean,
I don't know.
This is like, what does tempering really mean? Like, what does that really mean? I don't know.
We're getting there.
I think we're definitely going to get into it. I mean, because to name drop Gabu like that, we're going back. Like, as soon as Alisaie gets back to the source, she's going to Limsa, and she's like, all right, I got this. We're going to fix this. It's going to be great.
Well, Alisaie's already presented the theory, which I think we're going to consolidate over the next couple of patches, that tempering is literally just having your mind over aspected to either a particular pole or a particular element.
Right.
And that's it. It's that simple.
Yeah. No. And then, and then it's like, then how do they exert a measure of control? That's my question from that. Because I don't know.
And maybe
a lot of big questions. I know.
All right. So next up, we're going to go ahead and we're going to review patch 5.1. So to get this started, first we're going to talk about the MSQ. What did you guys think of the MSQ?
As with the original one, The Kaluja part felt the weakest. The stuff that happened there was important. There were a lot of little humorous things that I enjoyed there, but again, just kind of felt like these are things that need to happen. Lay them out, and they'll go away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with the Kaluja part, definitely. The ending I loved though. Like that picked it up for me. Like there was just so
the end saved
good.
it for me. Like
So much
it's
good.
they obviously after 5.0, I think part of it is 5.0 was so good.
Yeah.
That it's like, okay, we have to kind of reset in a way. Okay, all this really cool stuff happened, but now we need to start the long arc, right? Not just the boom expansion. It's okay, this is what we're gonna be doing for a year and a half now. And we're just gonna fight a new Mo, and it's a slow burn.
It was like, here's the intellectual stuff. Here's the stuff that has to happen. Go be a badass now.
It was way more like direct than most 0.1 patches are. Like most 0.1 patches we've had at the beginning do this weird thing of like lingering on the action of like the 0.0 climax. Just trying to like hang around there for a little bit and kind of like, you know, drag that out. Whereas 5.1 was literally just like, all right, let's get on with it. Here's the next business.
That's why when you were saying 5.3 being Zodiac, I was like, that would be so soon. They could do that though. They've been doing that.
Exactly. Exactly. The trajectory we've got, they could. So like 0.1 patches are never like, oh my god, oh this is amazing, all this stuff is coming to a head. So we kind of have to like judge it in the context of where it sits in like
it's the bottom of the action.
Where it sits in like the narrative structure of an expansion. But that said, like compared to 3.1, 4.1, compared to the 2.1 MSQ as well, I would say it was really, really strong. And the roleplay quest at the end, getting to hang out with Gaius and Estinian was just awesome. Like that was fantastic.
It was amazing. And then
I totally
Proto Ultima and oh my goodness.
I totally agree with everybody. It felt like a setup. I mean, pretty much what everybody said. That's exactly how I felt. It was strong from the standpoint of I think this was a really good wrap stuff up, get things set up kind of point. And even compared to, you know, Stormblood's patch content, Stormblood's patch content always left me feeling a little bit shortchanged. Very intentionally, I think, because there was so much that was going to be happening in Shadowbringers that was massive that it was almost more mysterious in a way than a lot of the other patch cycles we've gotten. And I kept waiting for like this big thing to happen, but then it was kind of, then it did, but then kind of not, but then sort of it did. And then, you know, we got into Shadowbringers and I went, oh, I see why you picked. I feel like this cycle as much, it's coming out swinging. I mean, exactly. In 5.3, I think we could see huge stuff happening. So even though this wasn't the most mind-blowing, world-changing patch of all time, I still rated it pretty solidly because I felt overall that it did what it needed to do for a first patch. There were some real highlights, like that whole ending sequence, and we wrapped up some threads that were really important in a very elegant way. So, liked it.
The implications are great.
For me, I really liked that idea of not just with the MSQ, but with all of the content in this patch. That idea of talking about the soul, and it was very thematic in that sense. You know, we talk about it in the MSQ, we talk about it a little bit with like the Pixie stuff, and it's just one of those things that's always kind of there. They come back to it in a lot of different ways. I mean, you could even argue that they're talking about that a little bit too with the Nier stuff and 2P. So I thought it was really good. You know, obviously there's some stuff I wanted to see, right? Like after Amarot, like I just want more Amarot. And we didn't get more Amarot. And you know, maybe we will. And it comes later and that's fine.
Fusion's favorite things, Hildebrand, Amarot.
No, Amarot I think is above Hildebrand right now for me.
Wow.
Who are you?
Where does Blitzball
I'm a man that loves Amarot.
Maybe we'll get more Amarot in Hildebrand.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Gosh, I don't know if I like that.
I don't know if I want Hildebrand near Amarot.
The Mandervilles are like
steak is good. Ice cream is good. Sure. Steak ice cream is not good.
The scenario of the Mandervilles realizing that they were fully spirits the whole time. That's the only condition under which I will accept them being an Amarot.
Maybe the new Briardian, the new competent inspector, is going to be an Amaratine.
That would be great.
Oh. I don't know if I want them to. I don't know if I want them to tarnish the serious, awesome scope of Amarot with full Hildebrand.
Yeah.
Wherever they take the Mandervilles gets tarnished. So
yeah.
I'm just holding out for either a zone in the future. Oh man, I don't think they would do this, but an X-Pack where we dive into our memories. If we ever complete our spirit and we just are in ancient Amarot, that would be amazing. But I think there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things they could do with that.
For the Echo to kick off near Emmett Selk, I was so waiting for it. Just that
you have to get something before the end, right?
the end of service. You finally rejoin your entire soul, and you just wake up. You were in a coma. The whole thing was a dream.
Why would you say that?
I would delete my channel.
Yeah, right.
I've never had anything to do with this game.
Your bros are just about to summon Zodiark, and you run out, and you're like, "This is a bad idea." No, we'll see.
It was just a novel that Sir Ed was writing.
Hear me out.
Yeah. I think this is a really good way to end your game.
I have people asking me in 5 years' time, "Oh yeah, so you played Final Fantasy for a long? What do you think of Final Fantasy 14? You played that, right?" I'll be like, "No."
No,
I skipped that one. Sorry, no.
Yeah. All right,
really
so let's go through our scores. We'll go me, Zanidra, Aldino, Rook, Ethys. 3.
I have to.
I got to pull mine up. I'm
it's not
sorry.
an
You
outline,
forgot.
buddy. It's not an outline, buddy.
Oh,
he combines them on the outline. I gotta go back and find it.
I got this.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
I'm ready.
There.
I'm good.
There you go.
So this is, we should say to everybody, this is on a scale of 1 to 4, so that at the end, when we combine them all, we get to a nice even 100.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I had a 3. Zanidra.
I had a 4.
Wow.
Aldino.
A 4, just because of the end.
Because of the end.
Same.
Rook.
I also had a 3.
Mm-hmm.
And Ethys.
Yeah, 3 for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was the end. It left a good taste in my mouth, so it got
the
4.
The end was good, but I don't know if
with implications. That's really it.
Yeah. Did save the lack of Amarot, but it was really good.
Yeah.
All right, next up, the Grand Cosmos, the dungeon from this patch. I liked it. I really liked being able to kind of explore this other area. I mean, the downside of these patches, right? And this is one of the issues I had with Nier. It's just oh hey, there's this whole big thing over here that nobody really knew about, and we're gonna check it out. And when the world is so focused on one certain area now that the flood of light kind of killed everything off, wouldn't you know a lot more about what's in your area? I would think so. But I loved the aesthetic of the dungeon. I love the fact that there's this room towards the end where it's the ballroom where there's just these kind of ghosts dancing, and you can actually walk around and they'll have bubble text on a lot of them.
Oh, I walked everywhere.
Yeah, it was really
We're trying to start the fight. I don't care.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I want to see what these people they want to talk to me. I also appreciate that it's been a while, I feel since I've had a patch dungeon where it's I needed to do the boss a couple times because we were how do you handle things? How do you do mechanics? And so I appreciate that aspect of it. It was, obviously there's a lot of other stuff that we've seen things like this before, right? And you're going to see that, but it was something a little new, and it, something that makes you think a little bit more, and I appreciated that.
I gave it a 3. I did think it was very pretty. The fights themselves were very simple. There were packs of mobs that did not have any special abilities at all except hit. And so several, I'm not lying, the very first pack of mobs, it just hits you, that's it. And then there are other ones where if you kill them fast enough, even in double pulls, they don't do anything anyway. I think the most interesting mechanic that the trash mobs did. Two of the dudes that hop out of the paintings, one of them does freeze, and if you get hit with it, you get stunned, and then the guy who does overpower could hit you with it. So it was like a cool combo, but that was the most interesting thing that the trash mobs did. The brooms were kind of cool in the first fight. They didn't have like a very obvious like stand here and you won't get hit thing.
Sure.
So I'm both ends on that. Like, cool.
I have been hit by those brooms on more than one occasion.
No,
I think I'm good, and then I'm dead.
Here.
I don't.
But it's not obvious. So I both like and dislike that because I enjoy the like formulaicness of a lot of mechanics, but at the same time, it's cool that they didn't go with it. The second fight was very straightforward, almost like a loop forever. And then the last fight is the only reason that this got a 3 for me, actually. I liked burning stuff.
Yeah.
I did it accidentally the first time, actually. I'm like, oh no, this blue flame is on me. I must need to like run around for it to go away. And I accidentally ran into the piano and then it was on fire and I'm just going, ah! Right?
That's what happened.
My first experience, I just happened to be like right next to one of the curtains. And I was like, oh, okay, so there's probably going to be some weird, like, use light to... No, it's just burn things. Okay.
Burn things!
You know?
Sure.
That was cool. I don't know.
As like I love mechanics. I love rotations. I love that stuff. I didn't rate it at all about how good it is as a dungeon because I'm never going to think about it. It's a dungeon. Right? So that's why I gave it the max score because I'm an Ellison.
Oh.
Do I have to go any further into why I would give it that max score? Also, I did it with trust, so like when all of them went to stand on stuff, I was like, oh, I must stand on stuff instead of on fire. Cool, I'm done. I didn't even think about it. I'm like, I don't care about that. Whatever, it's a dungeon. We're gonna do it a billion times. But the seeing the portraits and like, you know, they had knights, you know, like just seeing that kind of world building, I loved it. I want to know more.
Aldino, I think that this is I was actually surprised by this one. Out of all of the scores, when I sat down to think about it, this is the one that got me, and I only gave it a 2 out of 4. And I was surprised, honestly, because I was sitting there going, I enjoyed this dungeon. Like I loved the style of it. I thought it was fun. It was whimsical. It's got a little bit of that like Disney feeling. I was going, these are all ingredients for things that I love. But what you said really like honed it in for me. What was so amazing to me and memorable about that dungeon was the like ghost, the specter that's hanging over this place. And then to kind of get this whimsical fairy pneumo thing in there, I honestly, personally, I almost wish they had just leaned into the whole dungeon being about the ghosts and regrets that this this entity has, and
make it a vigil, you know, stone vigil or something like that. Man,
and like most of the stuff that I really liked from this dungeon. The final boss, the fire, that was super cool. Loved it. That was neat. Dug it. Really, I mean, it's just a cool thematic thing. But all the other stuff that I remember was really inconsequential to the actual dungeon. The room of the ghosts that are dancing, like, for me, that should have been a boss. Like, you go in or something, and maybe there's mechanics where you're having to, like, to avoid or get, like, lifted up, you're having to, I don't know, go dance with a ghostly partner that then, like, raises you up into the air. And maybe, like, the boss, you know, you're getting these tidbits about the lore and history of this place and what happened and, you know, the loss and the people coming out of the paintings. Like, I loved that. Or, you know, what if there was a part where we went into one of the paintings and, you know, we were in this other scape now, like a room that maybe had a different boss or something, where you were kind of living this more magical trap of regret that he was in. And while it was fun and whimsical, I think it felt like a miss for me, because for me, those dungeons are always the ones, it was fun and I like it. But for me, the dungeons that I really love and I get excited about, and I still love seeing, even with eye level being a big thing and, you know, them being easy, are those dungeons that just thematically wowed me for whatever reason, where I felt like the united story and context and all of it together. I mean, gosh, I still think about the lighthouse and the siren, that song in the background, and all the people. Like, it's just, there's so many memorable ones. And for me, this one, I liked it. I had a lot of fun. I thought some of the mechanics were fun, but I wanted to see them use more of those really incredible ideas that are in there, and more of that setting that just sparked my imagination and my emotion.
And I liked it. I gave it a 4. My one issue I had with it, though, is the brooms that you don't fight. They're just around as you travel around, and they have bubble text.
Yeah.
Which is backwards. There's no time to be able to read what the hell they're saying. Like you literally have to take a screenshot and come back, and like that's like I get it, okay, but that's annoying, and I should be able to.
I mean,
read
that's
it
what
while
I've
I'm
always
going
done
through.
for the stuff that's like text on the ground. You click
Right.
it. And
Yeah,
I just
me
take a
too.
screenshot and keep going
Right.
because I
Yeah,
don't hold
keep
people
going.
up.
Or the
back
you know
to
the
later.
well see that's the thing, that's even better because you can at least check your log. You can't check your log for bubble text.
That's true.
Yeah, I get that.
I suppose.
I did it with.
I enjoyed when I would get in there with a tank who thought that the brooms in the couple of hallways were going to come to life and they'd like, use their AoE thing. It's like, oh, buddy, no.
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 All right.
Oh, hold on, Ethys. Ethys, what about you? How do you feel about the dungeon?
I agree with what a lot of you were saying. For me, like it was cool to go through the first time for the story, for the world building, you know, getting like explore around and all that. That's great. But for me, in assessing an expert dungeon in particular, I need to think like, all right, if I'm doing an expert roulette and I get this dungeon like 3 or 4 or 5 days in a row, how am I going to be feeling?
Sure.
Yeah.
And it just whenever I go into Amarot or into the twinning in particular, like every time I'm like, hell yeah, this is awesome because it's just it's such a spectacle. Like it's just visually delightful. You know, you get that real feeling of like urgency and stakes, and the music's great, and
you get the twinning. You just turn sound effects off and you just crank it. Like
crank that music.
yeah, exactly. And I don't get that at all in the Grand Cosmos. I'm just like, oh, okay, all right, fine. It's just another expert dungeon. Like at the end of the day, so I gave it a 2 out of 4.
Yeah. And I get that.
All right.
I wonder.
So total then that's 16 out of 20.
Yep.
For the dungeon.
That's generous.
Yeah.
I think that's very generous.
The fire, I'm telling you, and it's not. I'm
That's
gonna
all you
admit,
need,
it's not a good thing to give an extra point for, but that extra point for fire.
No. Anytime they give me more insight to the elves on the first, I am going to give you give me that. I want to know.
I'm into that too.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the raid. The copied factory.
Did you guys do that? Like, I didn't do that at all.
Right? Yeah, it was all right for me. The music saved it.
Oh
I think. And I've said a million times, I've tried to play Nier Automata a million times. I can never commit to it enough, but I love the soundtrack. I actually bought the soundtrack. Absolutely love the music. And in that regard, did not disappoint. Mechanics I thought were fine. It's it's that same thing, in terms of like quote unquote difficulty, right? Where it's early in the patch, people aren't are still working on getting geared up and stuff. People are learning things, so yes, it will be hard, right?
Yeah.
And running it now, it's definitely better. The story, I feel like other Alliance raids had a little bit more of a coherent story that made sense. This was just like, oh, all right, like there's a dig site, let's go over. Oh, there's robots and there's this whole factory. All right, it doesn't make any sense to me, and yeah, so that's a solid 3 for me.
I went ahead and gave it a 4. I guess the first thing I'll talk about is mechanics. Similarly to the dungeon, and I guess also because of the creator of Nier, there's a lot of stuff in there that does not project itself to you. And there's a lot of stuff that's random, especially in that second fight. The first time you spin around, you get all 3 mechanics from the walls, and then also it shows you your floor mechanic. And it can go one way or it can go the other. So if you're in your brain thinking, oh, I'm gonna get blah next, maybe not. Did you pay attention to which way you spun? So I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, it's just like 50%, so it's not.
It's an interesting way when you think about it. I mean, typically when you're fighting a boss, you want to be looking at the boss. I've never looked at Hobbs once. I always rotate my camera to watch the wall.
No, I did. I did like that.
It's weird. You have this like really cool like GLaDOS wannabe boss, right? But instead you're just watching the wall move. Yeah. Also, the fact that wasn't voiced bugs the hell out of me after, especially
Not
after they
having voices,
voiced.
come on, man.
Especially after they voiced Evilise, because there's so much of this stuff again. Right, it's that same idea with the brooms. It's like, I'm going through this content. I don't have time to sit and read backwards, or I'm trying to dodge mechanics. I don't have the time to necessarily always read this text. Like, such a thing with Nier, I felt like, was that idea of having, that voice and the robots saying just absurd things. Why couldn't they have voiced that? Like, it loses so much, I think.
Yeah, voices add so much to encounters. Like, without any of the mechanics, like you can remember some encounters from this game, other games, just by the sounds. Like, you go to a WoW player and you hear them say, "Run away, little girl," and it's like, oh, that's Karazhan, right? Like, if we had the voices for this, like when he's like, what, that the laser test, what was it, what's the text on that, like the laser survival test or whatever the heck he was doing?
I don't know,
like if that was voiced, if that was voiced,
and a lot of the stuff that they say is so like absurd, right? It's like just like Nier, right? And it's just, I think it really loses something when they don't have it voiced, and that's a huge bummer.
They could have even done something really fun with that, where you were talking about all these random things that sort of happen, and you could have those different dialogue lines in those different mechanics, or even kind of a la the style of Nier. If you wipe or people die in a certain context, you could have like a little thing that comes up while everybody's resetting, or like a voice that goes over that talks about like the state of how you died, or like, because that's a big thing in Nier.
See,
audio cues, audio cues especially like would be super helpful, especially with the walls and the way that stuff works. But
there's no cast bars for those things. You watch for the lasers and you watch for the little little text thingy, which again that's in the sort of slightly more difficult randomish thing that I did actually like. There's another one of those in the third fight where you can either get the big lava puddles or the sort of randomish bombs from the sky. So it was, I feel like it could have been more random and that would have added to it a little bit, but I enjoyed that. I agree that getting to the raid was kind of like, does this exactly make sense? But I really like that afterwards there's a whole nother chunk of stuff to go do, and then they give you a log of it and you can go through and check out all these other cool details, and that smooths it out a bit,
being able to explore it.
No, that was awesome. It's kind of funny because I gave this a 4, and yet I feel I'm over here like, I'm only gonna give that dungeon a 2. Unbelievable. But I, for whatever reason, even with the critiques that I have of this one, I just had a lot of fun doing this Nier raid. And I feel like there are so many things to validly say about it. And honestly, maybe I should have leaned a little bit more towards 3, because I agree that the quest around it seems a little bit convoluted, and I can't really tell what direction it's going per se.
Yeah.
And that the kind of actual like way that it fits into the zone and stuff, also kind of confusing. But I'm still kind of holding out, because Nier itself as a game is kind of confusing, and it doesn't really reveal itself to you until you really get into it. So part of me, I think, is still hanging in there for that. And with everything else that was in the raid, the mechanics, I think they were fun and they felt pretty good for a first tier of a 24-man. I kind of wanted to see them be pushed even a little bit more, I'll be honest, to see some of that eccentricity come even more into it, because I'm going, if we are doing a true collaboration, and if this is an opportunity to grow the game in surprising ways with new possibilities for mechanics, like, let's lean into all that stuff that makes Nier super weird and, just really kind of figure it out. But overall, I still did enjoy the fights. And when I actually think through the arc of the fights and how different they all are, even if they're just robots, and the scale of them, going from that like first boss, who's that little cam boy, to then the last, you're getting this massive guy, and then you get, 9S and all this stuff. It feels like it is so much longer than it is in a way, because I was surprised by how much they put in there, from like the musical score to the bosses to the enemy types. You've got the flyers from Nier, you have the orbs, don't touch them, they're bad for you. Like all these different things that are kind of neat little nods down to the details, with your reset point being, the little things from Nier, and, flying into the zones on those guys, and then being able to go back and do lore. So it got a 4 from me, And some of that might just be because I did cry as well at the last musical arrangement. And I was like on stream just wrecked because it was just so
It's good. It's really good.
God, it's more than really good. It is like, that is an insanely incredible arrangement of music, combining both of these games who are known for their incredible music. And I think it just went to show for me that a raid can shine in ways that you don't always expect, and you can really love it. So I'm looking forward to the future. So I give it a 4.
Don't remember what else I was gonna say. I did a guide on this one this time, and even though I did the like gun to head thing before we started talking about this, I still, when I think about it, I'm like, yes, I want to go do that. That was fun. I'll do it again. Even though I did have to run it several times to get enough information to put this guide together. Let me tell you, second fight, because I had to get all of the platforms, right? It took me 8 tries to get C.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the things that takes me away from this a little bit, and again, this is coming in as somebody that's not a huge like Nier fanboy, right? It's the idea that I think out of all the theme park attractions, right, that they've had in the game. I mean, we've had Exdeath, we've had Kefka, we had Return to Ethys. I feel like this raid feels the most fan servicey to me. You look at the gear, and the gear is all it's unique pieces, right, per class, but it's all still very samey to me.
That's okay to me.
I agree with that.
It depends what you're looking for in a glamour, right? Like,
Remember when we were talking about the difference between the glamours being length of skirt?
It's one of those things for me. Like, when you look at raids we've had previously, like, like caster and healer stuff is always like mirrored or whatever, but I felt like just the overall design, it was all very samey. And when you look at how different like the stuff from like Ethys was, I don't want to say it's lazy, but it's I wish there was more variety to it.
I do want to say though that the gear from Ethys, for me, while it might be more diverse, for me it was a way bigger just swing and miss sometimes. Like,
sure,
a
lot of the gear I think from Stormblood was not that great looking.
Yeah, and like, bummer, because I love 12. Like, I love that setting, and so some of the pieces I'd like see. Oh gosh, I'm thinking of like the Dragoon top, towards the end. I think also Tanks kind of had a similar one.
Yeah,
and I was like, that is gorgeous, and I was like, I want that
outfit.
Yeah, I was like, I want that for me. But then I'd get to my roles, and I'm like, oh god, I don't have anything remotely like that.
That's why I like the samesies, because you're not going, oh, I wanted that one, and you're like, mine looks good too, whatever.
And now, keep in mind, I'm not saying that they're bad. Like, I got the body for my Dragoon, and I glamored that like right away. But it's just, I don't know, it feels a little samey, and it's pushing that idea of fan service even more.
It's so incredibly themed that there's nothing they could have done, really. Like,
I hope the next tier is samey.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had such the way that they've worked on other things, like with Omega and Ethys, it had already. I mean, Omega is a little different, but like with Ethys, we already had building blocks there for years, right? But now with Nier, it's just like, oh, hey, there's like a dig site over here. Let's go check it out. And we have like no premise for anything that's there. Also, how did we get into the dig site if they're all the dwarf doors?
I knew it was going to come up.
We still
can't. We can't crawl into their houses, but we can go into their dig site through 2 doors. All right, sure.
Well, they want us to go into the dig site. If we're trying to get into their houses, they're like bottleneck.
Maybe they actually have invented locks. Maybe the dwarves finally invented locks for doors. Like,
they don't just open up.
This raid a 2 if it wasn't for the music. I don't. It's gonna sound incredibly callous, but I don't know anything about Nier, and I do want to play it.
I've tried. I feel like I know a little bit, but I was still like, I don't know what's going on. This doesn't have this. It doesn't feel like it has the same kind of like wanting to know more that I was getting from like Ethys and Radark.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's totally valid, right?
More fleshed out and full. And honestly, like I did give the raid a 4, but I would give Ethys on our scale of 4 like a 6. So
exactly. There you go. Ethys, what did you think about the?
What did I think?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is tough. So I have played Nier. I've done the first 4 endings of Nier Automata, and the fact that I don't rate it as like game of the year, you know, medium defining, makes most people think that I haven't played enough of it.
Yeah,
but that's fine. I think a lot of like the stuff that we were hoping Yoko Taro would bring to the table in like very sort of subversive, innovative, like unique mechanics are not there. Like not yet. What we have at the moment is a typical Final Fantasy 14 Alliance raid, which is good.
Yeah.
Which is already like, you know, very high quality.
Yep.
Just with a Nier Automata skin on it. The story doesn't give us any answers, gives us a lot of questions. I don't really have a problem with being like, why is this here? What's going on? Because I have like 100% faith that those questions are going to start to be answered with the next part. This is just the build up. But I don't have any faith that they're going to start to do anything really unique or interesting with the kind of structure and mechanics of the raids themselves. Sure. I think like it's as good as the Ivalice Alliance instances, but that's just it. It's just another 24-man raid with some, you know, Nier flavoring to it. So I gave it a 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
Without the music, again, I'd probably give it like a 2.
That music is really saving it, man.
It really is.
The music is so good. It just adds so much to the replayability for me that like every time I go in there, I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm just like super pumped to do it. And without the music, I probably wouldn't be as excited to run it like several times a week.
Yeah.
So I give it a 3.
Yeah, that's why I said I started at 2 as well. It's a 24-man, and there's a couple of things, and cool. I don't know.
Yeah. I just really wanted pretty dresses. Okay.
Yeah, and I get that 100% because like
I mean the fact that they have the bonus chest just with glamour, it's just like, hey, we heard you want
a great idea.
Glamour.
First run, first thing in the morning, first chest.
I mean,
it makes me wonder if they'll do weapons at some point too, because that's the other thing that people have been wanting.
That actually gave me replayability for the 24-mans that I don't always have, and I actually like doing the 24-mans. I am one of those weird people that unironically says that Fun Skaith was fun, and that's why I call it Fun Skaith. Like, I had a good time in that raid, and I loved like helping people get through it and learn it and like doing this big thing together. Yeah. But it's kind of tough when you get into, for anybody, I mean, who does endgame raiding, right? You get to the point where those repetitions of things with like the 24-mans, maybe you're, you know, gearing up some alts and stuff, but if you've been clearing a lot, your gear, you don't really need it, you know?
You don't need to do it.
So maybe you go in for cosmetics. Yeah, like maybe you go in for cosmetics, maybe you go in because you think it's fun, maybe you go in because you want to run with friends. Like, there's reasons to do it, or you're trying to trade tokens for various things, but I felt like this time around, adding those extra incentives made me want to do it more because I was going, oh, there's a second minion I haven't even seen drop yet. I should go through it again. Oh, there's all this other stuff. Oh, I can get glamour from it even if I don't get a drop, you know, that I was trying to get. I can still get a chest. So I like that they added that. It felt good and felt better for me as a reason to go play, you know?
So are we all hoping that they do another of the little droid dudes, but it's a mount instead? Just like
I want that.
Yes!
I would take that.
I mean, I want the flight thing.
Yeah, the suit.
Why would you? Yeah, why would you want the pod? Get the
why not
flight suit, right?
Both. Why not both?
Does it come with?
For the last
Get
one.
greedy. Come on.
Oh, you can finally dive bomb your friends. That'd be fun.
You don't already on everything.
I just love that if it was a mount and you were in a zone where there wasn't flight, you'd just be walking around like a Gundam, just stop it.
I would make the noises.
Good. Or like skimming above.
Oh man.
The other cool thing that the raid did, obviously, was the fact we go back into the zone and we've got some logs that we can collect with a bit of flavor text. It would have been nice if it gave us more in terms of like lore, something more like a sightseeing log rather than just like a little bit of flavor text lifted from Nier.
Yeah, it was like some little things, but it's like, okay, this really doesn't help explain anything. And then they had that odd fork too with the 2 NPCs where it's like, okay, you can either like be careful about this or just jump in.
Makes no difference.
It makes no difference, and it's one of those things. This is one of the things I hated with Eureka, is that split for the narrative, where it can change depending on what you pick, and I don't think that's a good idea. Obviously, right now we haven't seen any big differences with it. I don't know if that's going to continue on with the next stuff, but
see, I'm on the reverse. I like splits. I'm excited about something like that.
I don't mind it, but the thing is, like, Nier Automata does some really, again, interesting subversing things with its narrative. And the fact that they give you this choice, which is completely arbitrary and completely meaningless, just draws attention to the fact that that aspect of Yoko Taro's brand is absent here.
Sure, yeah.
And I think it's a mistake to draw more attention to that, because it's like, oh yeah, you're right, this is pointless. This is completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
The log, though, I want them to include that in everything. I think that was really, really cool.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. That was one of my biggest problems with the Evil East raids.
Yes.
The arenas, the setting, everything is stunning. And especially because it has an actual place in the world and our understanding of it and the cultures and like the people, you know. And obviously now we have Viera, so there's, you know, a whole nother tie-in. Like, I really, really loved those, but I was so sad I couldn't go in and actually see the city or, you know, like go and some lore or context about what it really is in Eorzea and our understanding of it. And hopefully we repopulate it at some point. That'd be awesome. You know, maybe we get a new map there or something. That'd be super cool. But
it's like, build in Ishgard. I want to go live in Dunskythe. Like, what are we doing in Ishgard? Like,
yeah, Dunsky housing.
Why would you want to live there? No.
We fought all the things. It's fine. It's good.
It is in addition to Ishgard. Okay. I guess so.
All right, elf guy.
All right, so total, that's a 17 out of 20 for the raid. Yep.
Just as an addition on the log, I have not played Nier, so it could be that for me it was like, oh, I don't know what any of this is. Thank you for the explanation, right?
Yeah.
How do you guys think they'll use that idea of the collections going forward? Because that's a whole new thing.
Yeah, that is a very new thing.
I don't know if they will.
Yeah.
Well, it's a thing from Nier. Like, they use the same UI and everything from Nier Automata.
Sure.
I'm
not convinced. Like me.
I'm not convinced that they will. I hope they do. I mean, it would be a pretty simple thing to add. You know, even like literally just add sightseeing logs to some.
I was gonna say, they just make it sightseeing logs. And you just go around and you find things. And
what I want and what I've been like asking for the longest time is like, you know, you get books in Elder Scrolls, right? And it's just like 500 to like a couple of thousand words. You find it in places. Some of them will be like short stories. Some of them will be poetry. Some of them will be history, journals, whatever. That just add a little bit of flavor, add a little bit of lore and world building to these places. And you collect them, I guess, in the same sort of way you'd collect orchestrion rolls or triple triad cards.
Yeah.
And you build a bookshelf in your player housing and you put the books on it and have a little library.
I mean, Koji's talked about the idea of, you know, people have asked him a million times, right? The idea of like a library. He's like, that'd be great, but we really don't have any place to put this text. And this could be a way, again, you know, before you even said it, sightseeing logs would be a great way to do it. You know, you find a tombstone randomly somewhere in Thanalan, and you pop it into your collection thing, and you can read a passage about whatever.
Exactly.
Like,
that'd be great.
And that would honestly, because one of the biggest things that, I mean, keeps kind of coming up when we talk about on and off is how to make the open world a little bit more engaging, because I think 14 excels at so much design, but some of the areas where they're still trying to figure out what they want to do, it's in the maps, or, you know, even in some of these zones where you're trying to give some more lore now, like with things like this raid, which I think has brought up a new possibility that's really great. And the fact that Ethys, you brought up ESO is so neat, because I feel like Final Fantasy XIV has just as much lore. Its lore books are one of the few lore books that I actually say to people, go get these. They're so good. And there's a lot of information. And I was blown away in like Elder Scrolls Online when I realized that, one, all of the lore tidbits that I picked up in the world went into an archive. And then two, if I maxed out the Mages Guild, it increased it so that I got like a special achievement so that I could have an even larger lore catalog. and I became like a lore buff in the game, which then allowed me to hold on to even more books and get some books that I couldn't even see beforehand. And I'm over there like the lore nerd, just going, "This is everything I hoped for." Like, but no game
sorry, can you do that again?
No game ever gave me this, and it's my dream. Like, I was just
but also, like, it's a really easy and like not at all resource intensive way to deliver more lore and story, because
exactly
writers are cheap. we did not get paid very much. Like, it's not expensive to get us to do a lot of this stuff.
I mean, like, again, there's 2 encyclopedias out there.
Yeah.
All you got to do is find that original document, you highlight your text, you hit Control-C, and then you bring it over into the game.
Please don't do that.
Fresh lore.
Yeah.
Take a couple of well, I mean, that's what I'm saying though. Like, obviously we want the new stuff, but they could also retro it and go back and add not everything, right? You don't want to copy, but you still want people to buy the book. But
yes,
something that they could do. All right, moving on.
It'd be insane if they could fit everything in those books in places in the game. That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of stuff. Changes for Disciples of Hand and Disciples of Land. Because our review got pushed back one more week, we ended up getting 5.11. So this is also going to incorporate Ishgard reconstruction. Boy, was I scared when I first changed over to my crafters. I don't do a lot of crafting.
Right?
I dabble.
Yeah.
Right? I'll do like the Namazu dailies, right? I'll do them as like a crafter and get that stuff up. I'm okay with the changes. Like, I was fine going through stuff and, you know, learning how things work. And I personally didn't really have a lot of issues. But Ishgard was not quite what I was hoping it would be. I think for me, as a 1.0 player, right, you have this idea of concerted works, and you're like, oh, Hamlet. No. So check this out. Concerted works. It's a fate.
He's gone.
Yeah, we lost him. All right. See you later, Ethys.
Didn't even get up, just rolled away.
Yeah, he's
gone.
He's drawing this out. He's still gone. All right. So when the fate happens, right, all that you do, you click on a pile of logs to gather your materials. You go over to like a second set of logs to like prepare the materials, and then you go over to like the structure and you click on it to like apply the materials. And that's it. That's all you do. You just rinse and repeat. And it doesn't I don't know. It doesn't feel like you're doing anything to me. Like, it's just
It almost has to be like that though, because they end quickly.
I mean, well, see, that's another issue, right? When you think of the long game, this isn't going to be content that's around forever. So why put
already
effort?
over on Dalbung.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, why put any effort
don't
into
come up
it
anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, why make anything unique or whatever to it if, you know, it's done in you know, the first week, and there's, you know, it'll come back in a few patches, but there's not much to it. It won't be around forever. And so
it's good XP.
Well, yeah, no, it's great XP.
It has great rewards. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff.
The point of it and the value in it was the fact that it made us dust off our crafters.
Right.
Yeah.
And have a look at crafting and be like, wow, there's a lot of cool quality of life changes here for crafting. Maybe I'll do a bit of crafting. And a lot of people will keep doing crafting. Like Ishgard Restoration is not the end game of crafting. It's not like the reason you do crafting or the object of crafting.
But it is a big part of this patch series, and in fact, you are going to get some, like they said, you know, you'd get like tools that were, you know, similar to like what you'd get from like the ultimate fights, but for crafters and gatherers. So in this patch, it kind of is the end game,
right? Yeah, I think that's fair. But it's kind of like, I mean, it's comparable to the Doma reconstruction, right?
Right. The beginning of that was
right, and again, that's not something that we ever go back to. Like, we do it and it's done.
Yeah.
But this is a far more compelling way to deliver that.
Sure.
In this sort of like, you know, collaborative sort of social vehicle.
Yes.
Than what that was. So I think for that, I think it's good.
I love when MMOs do things that remind you that you're in an MMO. You know, like, and it's a small thing. Yeah, there's a stupid bar and it goes up, but it is everyone contributing. So I really like that. And I hope that, and you know, I agree with you, Fusion, it's not a lot, but I hope that this is just the foundation. of the rest of it.
Well, the other thing in relation
Welcome
to
to the
that
pun
is that
patrol.
you go back if you're gathering your mats to make the crafters stuff for the turn-ins, you'll notice going through the air on Heaven's Ward zones, there are so many gatherers out in these old zones, populating these old zones, and it's the same sort of thing. You're like, okay, here's people in the open world, and anything that like facilitates that, even if it's only temporary, I think it's gonna last a long time, just because like the massive amount of EXP you get from crafters. It's gonna last until like everyone that is gonna level their crafters is done leveling their crafters.
It was nice that they included it throughout like the past zones. Like one of the things that I thought was really funny, I got my armor to 80 this week, but I started doing like the level, was it like level 70? Like you can join in like level 20 up. They got recipes for crafters. And so I did like whatever the one is that's not the top, like the one down. And so I went to gather it, and it was hilarious to me. It's like, all right, you want this like Sky Builder's ore. It's underwater. Sky Builder materials, go gather it underwater. Okay.
You're just building in the sky. It doesn't say Sky Gatherers or.
Yeah. It doesn't say sky ore.
Yeah, I'll be really curious to see once we get into probably like 5.21 when we start to incorporate gatherers a little bit more with Diadem. I'll be curious to see how this content kind of evolves. Right now, like I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting a little bit more, but you counter that with the realization of, but it's not going to be around forever. So why would they put the effort, right? Like a cost thing. Like why would we invest this much money into developing this crazy unique crafting fate thing when it's not going to be around? So, and I get that. I wish too that they would mix up housing a little bit, even if it's in newer areas, right? I at the point, like, as soon as the patch hits, someone's like, here's the map.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Here's where the smalls are going to be. Here's where the mediums are going to be. I'm sorry, I'm contributing to this. If I have a say, you're asking me what I think about this stuff. I think you should make all the plots be large size, start as a small house, and you should be able to upgrade to a damn mansion if you have the money.
Right.
Yeah.
But they want it to be like everything else, and they don't want to innovate anything, and they want it to be the same, and so that's why we'll probably
have the
fake
same out.
Thing we already do.
That map is entirely fake, and they're not going to use it at all later.
I mean, there's still time to change it.
That'd be funny.
Was it last week that we were speculating a little bit about, how wonderful, how awesome would it be if they decided to like let this just go forever, where like you could on demand open up more housing wards if you met these goals again, and then you could
that'd be crazy.
Get another instance map or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's tough as somebody
much extra server space to do that.
Oh yeah.
But I think this is a big problem because I know so many new players and myself who come into this game, like we have a medium plot, but we've had that medium plot forever, and we have been sitting on the money for a large, but we cannot get a large. And it's one of those things where some people will have like 5 houses because they were able to get up, and then some people get up an hour later and they can't, or all these different things. So I think there is an issue with it, especially if they are continuing to keep expanding that, on like furnishings and stuff like that.
In that same regard too, it really bugged me starting the quest for this to get into the firmament. I mean, all the NPCs, like it was a nice kind of reunion back to Ishgard, right? You're sitting in town, you're like, oh hey, there's that one NPC, you probably don't remember me. Who are you again? But
of course I do.
They keep pushing this idea, and maybe this is just me reading into it with a more salty state of mind. It's like everybody's gonna be able to get a house, and it's gonna be great, and it'll be for everybody. And I'm thinking, not if it's like the standard housing wards you have now. No, it's gonna be terrible. Nobody's gonna be able to get what they want. It's
granted, Belmont, I don't think anybody thought they were going to be able to get a house.
I mean, granted, the plus side is when these open up, we'll have like it'll be probably the same amount as all the other housing areas. So we'll get like 42 wards or 44 wards or like a bunch, like just like a metric. And so it'll be great. But will you still get what you want? Probably not.
I mean, we just have to see. One thing I can say is that housing stuff aside, so I ended up giving this feature 3 out of 5. Or sorry, 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4. We're at a 4 scale. For me, mostly just because of the problems that there kind of were with its implementation. The fact that people were really trying to contribute but they couldn't even make it into the one instance because, you know, fate was happening and they couldn't even get in there. Or, you know, conversely, the fact that, you know, Zen, like you were saying, people got really excited about helping and they wanted to go help some of the smaller servers, but then they got locked out because, you know, it seemed like there were some little technical things, which is to be expected with the release of like a brand new content type. But some of it felt like it could have been anticipated a little bit and you know, a little bit polished. Other than that, though, I think that as somebody who has procrastinated crafting and gathering for as long as I humanly could, and I got Weaver up to 70 and Stormblood, but even then I was like, I have no idea how I did this. I had some really kind people who helped me, thank you. Like, it has been so much more accessible coming into it now and feeling like, hey, I know that a lot of these skills that I had no idea what they did, and apparently nobody else knew what they did, are now gone. And now I can start fresh and I can try this, and I'm not gated out of this content because I can go in with a level 20 and just level it, and I can help and I can be a part of it, and I can connect with other crafters, and I can go out gathering. And that, I think, has been a huge success with this new content and this implementation, which is awesome.
And it really makes me think about how that's going to affect the last Beast Tribe quest we get, because usually that's something that'll help you with, you know, gathering or crafting, but we have this kind of right up front now where it's like, if you want to level this stuff, here's the method, right? Here's the content to do it with. And so that'll have an impact later on down the road, I think, too. For me, I also really like the gathering changes, and I went over this real quick last week. It's just, again, Shadowbringers has done a really good job with just kind of cutting out the BS on stuff. You know, jumping on my miner after the update, there's all these things, you know, you get the little grayed out, slash through it, you can't use this anymore. And I'm looking at these, I'm like, what even were you for? Like, something about, like, elemental based things or something. I'm like, I don't know what you were. I never used you. I don't miss you at all, because what even were you? So those are long gone. Stealth is great. You can mount with it on, you can run with it on. It's awesome. Quick gathering also is amazing. I love it. Yeah,
definitely.
I love all the changes. I wish there was a little bit more involved with Ishgard. Part of it with the fate, but I also understand why maybe it's not more involved. But I feel like they should have more better anticipated, like, how quick people were going to finish this. And maybe, you know, this is going to be like Eureka, right? This is going to be our Eureka for this patch. They had no idea how people were going to tackle it, and so they'll be making adjustments. You know, 5.2 Ishgard Reconstruction Pagos is going to be like Diadem, you know, Diadem version 3 is going to be our Pagos, and it's going to be a nightmare. But then maybe you know, the Reconstruction in 5.3 will be okay. So
I think it's
I'm with Rook on this. I gave it a 3 because of some of the issues with Ishgard, experiencing them very violently firsthand. I think
it's a lot of smashed thumbs after everybody hammering on the thing.
There was just a lot of nastiness. I know we were talking about how this was bringing it together, but there was a lot of nastiness in the social aspect of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
There was a lot of get off my server, go back to your server. As a player from Balmung, we already have a bad rap, so Balmung go home specifically was very
why?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Even on Gilgamesh, right? So when I was in, because I jumped in the morning of, like, hours after the patch actually landed, right? I wasn't there, like, right away, but I came in, logged in, like, I don't know, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and I went and I did, you know, entered Ishgard, and they're like, okay, like, we're finishing the thing. Okay, now it's 2 hours. We're gonna wait. And everybody's already talking about, like, hey, we should go to other servers and, like, camp their stuff, and don't leave the zone because you're gonna get locked out. And and it's just and the chat too. It's one of those things when you have a lot of people in an area waiting for something. Chat can go south real fast.
Everybody wants to do the thing. They want to be the special guy who does the thing, and if they can't get into the zone because of people not on their server, that's who they're gonna blame.
Yeah,
that is such an NA problem. That is not
I believe that.
I know. It's really it's a non-issue. I'm sorry you didn't get to do the fate. I'm sorry you didn't get to get your level from the fate, but it's more efficient to just go do your crafts. Yeah, 100% more efficient.
I think as a developer, and this is, again, what caused that discrepancy for me. As a developer, you have to think not just about efficiency, right? you have to also think about the player experience. And I think, you know, obviously they're trying to do both, but there was this oversight with this fate thing, right? Because think about just the general hype that gets created from something that pops, like something that everybody has been talking about, hyping up. You know, you're in your server, you're in your FC, and everybody's like 20 minutes until it pops, 20 minutes until it pops. And everybody wants to be there. And even if it might be more, you know, more effective to just go craft on your own or do something else, as a player, especially if you're not super informed about crafting, you're going to see that hype, you're going to get carried by that hype, and then your response is going to be, I want to do this thing with everybody.
Let's see it.
And you can, because all you have to do is click on 3 things in the fate, and that's how you do it.
But it was really a problem on the big servers, on the servers that with more population. The servers, actually going to the servers with lower population, everybody was intensely more friendly.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I started out on Zalera, honestly. Like, Zalera was this tiny little server, and now it's always full, and there's a queue, and all the housing wards are taken. But I found that it was way more friendly. It was less contentious. I knew people by name that I'd see all the time, and it wasn't like I know them because one time there was drama. And, like, you know, it was just so chill. And so it was a little surprising to me to hear that there were so many problems with this. But as I started thinking about that player, you know, that response and what feeds it and what leads you on, and then people being mad they get locked out, and then people being upset that other people are coming to try and get their experience and their rewards, like, it was just a bad mix. And I think it had good intentions, but that the devs and maybe the people kind of leading whatever discussions went around how to structure this did not really take that component of the design into account, or just vastly underestimated it.
I think that's the thing too. It's definitely an issue of longevity, because this wasn't with 5.1. This was 5.11. This was content designed to help fill that gap between now and the next big patch, and it's already done for a lot of people.
Well, but there are plenty of smaller servers that still need help, and I think, and I hope that once the bigger populated servers are done or close to done,
and once that's done,
we need to open this back up so that those small servers aren't completely screwed.
Here's what'll happen, right? You'll have your server done, and then the data center will be on, you know, Reddit or their own Discord or whatever, and they'll be like, all right, now the Ishgard train is going to go to this server after they reopen the things up, and they're just going to keep going through all the servers, and it'll still be wrapped up in 2-3 weeks.
But it's not done just because people have done the fates. Like, people are still there's still like hundreds of people hanging out in those instances on every single world, just leveling up their crafters. And that's what it's really about.
The fates are weird.
There's still hundreds of people in all these zones gathering these mats.
The fates are weird.
It's really about.
I almost think the content would be better if they just got rid of the concerted works, because you complete it and then the game's like, all right, it'll pop in like 8 hours. I'm like, cool, that's 2 a.m. I won't see it. And
what about instances? What about instances?
I mean, yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
I think the solution here would have been like the final fate, just have that repeatable. Until the next tier.
Yeah. You know? Like every 8 hours, just have another one. Yeah. People are gonna get bored, I guess.
Or just get rid of them. I like, it's cool, like being there for like the first one. I'm like, all right, this is cool. You get like a bunch of XP. Like, that's
Decisions
great.
for the death penalty. Just get rid of them.
See,
I mean, it worked for Dieta.
Yeah.
It might be interesting because there was so much discussion about this being, and I've wondered about this since it was released. There was so much discussion about this being end game content for crafters and gatherers. And we see now that it's a leveling tool, you know, there's, I mean, a lot of other incentives for it.
Sure.
But I mean, if those fates, or if, you know, you have a lot of serious crafters that are very passionate about them, maybe you have those like lower fates that pop and people can go do them and get experience and it's really simple. But maybe at different tiers throughout this, something does trigger where if people went into these instances or something, you know, you would need like max level crafters. You would need to meet some kind of threshold. You would need to have something where it's like, this is actually like, we need 3 weavers and 2 culinarians and like, you know, whatever it is to make it actually that end game component. And then you'd have some of that, like, you know, player base split. So it wouldn't be like everybody is trying to do this one thing simultaneously in like an explosion, you know?
Yeah.
So you're talking about the Crafter Baldesian arsenal.
Yeah, like a Crafter Baldesian, yeah.
Yoshida did imply that like the more endgame stuff is going to be coming later.
Yes, later
Yeah.
on.
And this is just the first step.
Yeah, we don't even have the leaderboard thing or the all the gathering stuff in yet.
Exactly. And this will be updated every patch. And the more endgame stuff. This is just to get people in the door. Again, the great value in it is that it's facilitating people to come back to their crafters and have a chance to have a look at all these new quality of life changes and get to like reassess whether or not they're going to be invested in crafting. A lot more people are going to get invested in crafting. They're going to level them up and they're going to be ready for the end game stuff when it comes.
Yeah. Right. So total then we've got for all of this, that's a 17 out of 20. Next up we have the super gigantic topic.
I like how we were Ishgard was kind of tacked on and we were all over Ishgard, right?
Yeah.
It's the newest thing, right?
Yeah. Because the changes are they're great. Like they're good.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue, I'm sorry.
So the next super vague topic is other. Obviously we don't have a review category for everything. There was a lot added with this patch. We had Hades Extreme, we had the Pixie Beast Tribe quests, we had fellowships.
You made a face where you made a face.
So for other, I'm going 3, and that 3 is because of fellowships. And we talked about this last week. I'm not going to get into it again because we'll spend half an hour on it again if we let us. They're terrible. You can't search for them. They're pointless. I don't know what they're supposed to do. And that's why Beast Tribe quests were great. I love the story with them. How that ties back into the MSQ. It's really, really good.
Yes.
And we get a playground for it. We get like an actual new area with them, which is really cool. That's something that they haven't done before. Yeah. So there you go. Lots of good quality of life stuff too.
What is this Candyland as place?
Yeah, I went for all the other stuff, and it's funny because I think the two things, fellowships, obviously, but then also, as far as like Hades X went, we talked about this last week, so I won't get into it too much here, but I was a little disappointed by the scope of the fight. So for me, it's funny because those things probably would have knocked the score down, but I went 4 because I think overall we got so much with 5.1 and 5.11. Like I've been blown away by the variety of content, all the stuff that we got, the new things, the quality of life features, the story, a big hunky part of story. Like there was just so much in this that I honestly felt like, oh hey, this is way more than I ever expected. So I'm really happy with this. And I think that some of them were really big successes. Yeah, the Beast Tribes, super fun. I like the new pacing. The story was really good. Added some more sort of wrap-ups to some of the stuff in that zone. And all the rewards have been great. And so, yeah, even if there were a few things where I was like, maybe this wasn't exactly it, or we're still figuring this out because it's new content type.
Right.
I do really think overall we got so much. So I went 4 for it.
I also went 4, but my 4 was specifically for pixies and glimity glams and furnishings. Just because there was so much stuff, I couldn't remember it all. I think if I had to factor in everything, I would probably go down 2 or 3. But specifically for the pixies and the pretty dresses and the cool glams and the neat new furniture. Like, thank you for a fountain. Finally, I don't have to make one out of 6 different things.
And I want to bring this up. We mentioned furniture. I thought this was really interesting. One of the things that you can use your Skybuilder scripts for from the Ishgard reconstruction is this painting of Ishgard. And it's actually the concept art, the old like illustration of Ishgard that they used, but it's flipped.
Interestingly enough,
it's from the other side.
I don't. It's just one of those weird things. I just looked at it. I'm like, that bridge should be on the other side. Like,
well,
why?
everybody...
Like they're working on these furniture pieces. Oh, hey, Ishgard, that's cool. Yeah. Hey, you know what'd be really wild? What if we like did a horizontal flip on that? Ooh. Like somebody had to go in and decide to flip that artwork around. It's okay. It's such a weird little thing that I noticed. Yeah.
The only logical thing is.
Oh, go ahead.
Was that maybe we're on the same? I was gonna say maybe tin hat time. This is an Easter egg. Things come.
Yeah.
I
We
was
should
like,
probably
maybe
spend some time.
We're gonna make another
the
bridge on Ishgard.
The original design was supposed to be that way,
No.
but they
Yeah.
flipped it.
Yeah, and they,
So that is the original
Well,
art.
When they found the
it
concept
depends on if the mountain in the background is supposed to be Samal. If it is, then yes, the flip is correct and therefore canon. If it's not, then whatever.
yeah.
I don't know. I have no
So there you
idea.
There you go.
I don't have a
I put a
house
lot of
full
thought into this
furnishings.
the other day when
Like,
I noticed this.
I'm going
I was
to
like looking at
change-
maps. And...
I'm gonna change my Ishgard score to a 1 because that is unacceptable.
Yeah, that's wrong.
and
No, that's
inconsistent.
wrong. Just can't do it.
Oops.
My other score. I'm a summoner. Can I give it 100?
Ooh.
I've seen some good things for Summoner. Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
You don't even pretend to be objective, you
No.
guys.
no, no, I'm not.
I like summoning. I like fire.
I mean, this is the other category. You can do whatever
I mean,
you want
It's,
to do.
it's blue fire. Come on.
The other
blue
things
fire.
like fellowships. I wasn't gonna use it anyway, so that doesn't. I don't care if they add
Doesn't
it or
even
not.
factor in, does it?
No.
Fellowships
No.
have been a pain in my ass since they started.
Right?
They're
Don't
like,
even
all right,
care.
put up the fellowship. Okay, it's up. 1 week later, Rook's like, hey, I can't find it. It went down. I have to put the recruitment back
No.
up.
Then Zen, I went on the night that you relisted it.
Couldn't find it.
Went on. I searched every single tab and I looked through all of them 2 times.
Yeah.
This is where the hatred of the fellowship was
You know
born.
what I think happened? The second time I put it up, I only had recruit 20 people. We got 20 people, so it went away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would explain something.
So then I needed to put it back up, but I was out of town and I couldn't because we couldn't get Rook in because it was down.
These are the problems with
Pain in my
fellowship.
ass.
And this is why I don't even want to think about it. Hades, yeah, was easy and kind
Hades
of
was
boring,
fun.
but it was a spectacle.
That's
Yeah,
all right.
cool.
Mhm.
Pictures
Not
are cool.
nearly as hard as they had projected at
No,
all.
not even close. Yeah,
Shinryu level? No. I mean,
No.
Shinryu, once you broke it down, wasn't too bad either, but at least we saw a ton of like new
Mhm.
mechanics and you had the multi-targets and like
Mhm.
that cool last phase. Hades was kind of one of those things where like we talked about, I mean, I just feel like the scope of like the scope of that thematic weight of that fight was not backed up
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the mechanical.
I didn't
Yeah.
feel like it
Weight
was as
of the
long
fight
as they
in
said
X.
either.
It's just because the cutscenes were long.
The cutscenes
really.
are long.
We did
Yeah.
a lot of farming Shinryu. Maybe
Right.
I'm just used
Well,
to it.
I
the thing is,
think it's like the max enrage for Hades is quite long because
Yes.
you've got like enrages on each of the phases, and if you
Mhm.
drag those phases like right out to the enrage, the
Exactly.
fight's probably like 14 minutes.
Okay.
so I was gonna say,
Hmm.
because it depends on your damage there, because you can
Mhm.
push those phases earlier than they really thought you might, especially if you're fully
Yeah.
geared in raid gear. So
Yeah.
you kind of trivialize it immediately, and that didn't quite happen with Shinryu or Thornton
Yes. I
at
agree.
all. Yeah, and I think
agree.
that's really the difference. And it was a beautiful spectacle. And like
Mhm.
when he's like summoning, like other Asians in the mass,
Mm.
I'm like, this is gonna be so cool.
Everybody's
And then
doing
it
their.
kinda wasn't.
I'm just like screenshot, screenshot, screenshot.
Yeah, exactly. It's super cool. And then the last phase past the story mode was
Mm.
pretty interesting.
Ha!
There's problems. What?
Here's the problem. It's
The-
okay. It's not.
the
It's not.
goose.
No.
The goose from Untitled
Here's the
Goose
thing.
Game just made an appearance.
It's not interesting. But
Well, no,
the
I
problem
mean-
is when you're trying to design a longer fight like
Yeah.
this, the difficulty has to be a bell curve. You
Yes.
can't have the hardest part like in that final
Mhm.
phase because that's unreasonable for
Yes.
this level of content.
I mean,
Um,
I think you could, but your pacing in the overall fight would have to be a little bit different,
Mhm.
right? Like Tsukiyomi had a spike, I would say, a curve that led more to the end, right? Like
Yeah.
those
Yeah,
initial
but it was
phases
a
in the
much
story.
shorter fight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
much
much shorter.
Yeah,
So it's one of
this
those
is my
things
point.
where yeah, I feel like it's okay. And again,
Mm.
I always preface this with the understanding that us saying something is not hard does not mean that it
Right.
not right? This is just
Mm.
our
'Cause
opinion.
there's people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a
Like,
lot of
Charles
this
and I have been in a static for a long time with members that have not changed, so we have a good synergy.
Yes.
We know how to interact with each other.
and
That's what it's
What you guys have
especially
been doing with static.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
on Elemental, you go into Raid Finder and you'll have like a 90% success rate with Hades.
It
Yeah.
is
It's,
amazing.
it's not hard.
No.
But it's fun. It's fun to farm.
Yeah.
The spectacle's great. The music is like an absolute banger. Like it doesn't get
why
boring.
I said it's interesting. The mechanics are they're never interesting. They're the same mechanics that we've always done, and then there's some towers, and then there might be a spot that you could stand.
Which is why I was a goose suddenly.
Right. Yeah. Well, when I'm writing any piece of content that I know that I'm gonna have to do several times, my rating is always based on like how long can I tolerate this for? Like, basically, if I have to do this like several days in a row, am I gonna get bored? Am I gonna want to like tear my hair out? And the answer is no. Farming Hades is still fun because
exactly.
It's fun.
Yeah.
There are certain things you can do in this game where you can really not pay attention. And like I said, we're in a static, so there's no change every time. We don't have that pug thing inconsistent going on.
This is your spot.
We can screw around in this fight.
Oh, and we do it
so bad.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Something that's interesting too is that I think that this fight, if you are somewhere where you're having a lot of difficulties with pugs or you're having a lot of problems with Party Finder, it could just be that you have a lot of new people coming to endgame content or raiding, because this fight is essentially made up of the components from last tier's raids. So I mean, if you did Stormblood raids, you already know what fire thrower or flamethrower is. You already know what a lot of these mechanics are. You already have a general idea of like, these are the points we stand on and we do this and we face that way, or we're going to switch these buffs or these debuffs, or whatever it is. So that the fight is already something that's probably in your arsenal, especially with a static, right? Like our static picked it up and immediately identified and went through. But if you're somewhere where there is a newer raiding scene, or people are just coming into it, or certain times of day or things, they may not have ever seen those.
New people.
So they may be learning those mechanics for the first time. Or conversely, if you're in a data center where there's a lot of knowledge about that fight and it's really smooth, it's probably just because a lot of people already know those building blocks and know how to repeat them pretty efficiently.
Yeah. It was good.
It's a fun fight. As much as I guess I was giving it crap, it's a fun fight.
Well, I gave Other a 3 just because there's a lot of content here.
Yeah,
that's the most important thing. That's what you want from an odd patch. You want stuff that's going to tie you over to the next patch, and there's heaps of stuff to do.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with any of the quality of life, or so far that I have seen, the job adjustments. Now I'm saying that as a summoner, sure, but for Ninja and for Samurai, we're hearing good things from everyone who plays those. Right? I haven't heard anything bad yet.
I'm still working on getting my Sam to 80, but some people on our Discord have said that the use of Shoha now, it just feels really good. Right? It's
a step forward on the road to jobs being fun. Every job being fun for the people who want it to be fun. It's a step forward.
But Summoner is busted.
Oh, yes. Oh, I said that last one, too. No, I said this when we were doing the impressions. I was like, it's a little too much. It's a little
too much.
Tiny little sliver.
His skin is payback.
Did you see that clear? The Black Mage still destroyed the Summoner. As far as EPS. So they're in an okay spot as far as that. Now it only being ranged, I don't know.
Summoner is averaging like across the Eden fight. Summoner is averaging like 1k DPS over Black Mage.
Oof.
That is true.
And about 500 over any of the melee, and that's like.
I mean,
the first night we got into the raid, I was like, "Hey Charles, how are those changes feeling?" I looked down. He's a K higher DPS.
Yeah.
And his answer is, "I don't know what I'm doing yet," and I'm just like,
that was without knowing what I was doing yet. I'm still playing it kind of like you.
I'm still trying to figure this out. How is it looking? You're doing okay.
Like if they adjust the damage down, I wouldn't even care because it plays well. It's less insane. It feels better. It's still not exactly what I want, certainly, because I would rather less freaking Eggy assault. I don't want anything to do with the Eggy. I know you say, why are you a summoner, but whatever. But like they have never done anything interesting with Eggy, so whatever. But like even if the damage were lower, it would still be an improvement. Like, that's good. I want that. That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go adjust back the dots, go adjust back the eggy assaults, because that is a little bit of where it's coming from. Cool, I'm fine with that. I wouldn't care. Like, okay.
As long as it's fun and not a punk fest.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Ethys, you and me both gave it a 3. I mentioned Fellowship stocking the point off. What didn't make it a 4 for you?
Well, I'm just of the attitude, like, if you give something 100%, then you're literally saying like it couldn't be better.
Okay.
And I'm just reluctant to do that. You know, it just
I get it.
Categorically, you know.
Yeah.
So a 3 out of 4 is like very good, very good. I don't care about fellowships. I didn't even factor fellowships into this. I wasn't detracting.
They're very forgettable. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna give our patch 5.1 review a total of 85 out of 100. So, which is the highest rated patch we've had. Granted, we've done one other patch review and then the expansion review.
I mean, the expansion review was much higher than that. So.
Expansion. You can actually look at the marketing for Shadowbringers. You'll see our review score for that.
Yeah.
But I think 4.5. It was like 76 or something like that. It was lower.
I mean,
we gave Gimlet a lot of
Gimlet, yeah.
Depending on where you are in the world, what is an 85 out of 100 in your,
it's a B
academic session? Yeah,
it's a strong B.
It's a strong B.
85 out of 100 here is a high distinction.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, here
like, that's very high. Very good.
Here it's like good, but not excellent, not the best. You
paid attention during class, but you didn't study.
Yeah.
The way our bell curves work at university here is that, like, if you get an 85 on a course, there will be maybe like 1 or 2 people in like the cohort of like 500 people that did better than you. So 85 is where I'm coming from. 85 is very generous.
So we also something else we tried for this. I don't know if that we'll be doing it again necessarily, but in all of the fellowships we had on each of the NA data centers, we did a poll. We had these same 5 categories and asked people to vote for their favorite one. In first place, with the majority of the votes, was the raid, followed by Disciples of Land and Hand changes, and then MSQ and other, and nobody voted for the dungeon. So
reasonable.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So, again, it was something interesting, something new we wanted to try. Fellowships are just a pain. So I don't. They really are. Like, it was this new thing. We wanted to try it out, right? Give it a good run, and it's bad. So probably won't do this again. We'll see. Yeah. Never say never. But yeah, there you go. So
improvements can always happen.
Yeah.
Please let me set my recruitment end date to never.
That's also really. I'm glad we got to hear that, though, because I think, all of our discussion obviously is sort of where we are in our understanding, but hearing outside that people really did feel like the raid was something they were really excited about, it's kind of a neat thing to hear, as people who just talk about the game itself, to be able to say like, oh, hey, maybe there are a lot of people out there that found this to be a high point. And I'm curious about what exactly, really, really spoke to people, across the board.
Yeah, definitely. So before we end this, Ethys, where can people find you? What are you up to these days?
Oh, I mean, you can find me in Norway like pretty soon.
Jumping continents.
Yeah.
People listening, like, I live in Norway. I'm gonna have to take some more walks.
Yeah.
See if I can just see Ethys.
Yeah. So if you see a guy that looks like me somewhere in Norway, and you're like, it's probably me. Yeah, so you can find me there, but otherwise I'm on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, everywhere. Ethys Asher, for nearly daily streams and lore content, and check it out. Thanks for having me again, guys. It's always
thanks for being here.
Yeah,
and,
I love having you here because I'm always like, hey, I don't know what I'm talking about. Can you tell me what I'm talking about, please?
Nice.
Tell me about the lore details.
The lore stuff. It's like vague stuff I kind of remember. It's like, You're a wonderful encyclopedia that will talk back to me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. If you would like to get into contact with us, you can email us at aetheryte@gamerscape.com. You can find us at Aetheryte Radio on Twitter, as well as Gamerscape on Twitter, Facebook, and Discord, discord.gg/Gamerscape. Hop into our Final Fantasy XIV general chat or our Aetheryte Radio chat and chat with us throughout the week. That'll do it for us here this week. Next week, we'll still be here. However, a reminder that November 30th, that will be Thanksgiving weekend for us here in North America. So we will not be doing a show then. But right now, tentatively, this week after that, December 7th, we will be bringing Bryn back. There was some talk about the game. I forgot to include this in the news bits. This is a big deal. The other day in London during the EXO 2019 event, yes. Phil Spencer did say that, yes, they are bringing Final Fantasy XIV to Xbox. Obviously, Bryn is very excited about that.
If you want to see a sweet ginger-bearded man cry,
yeah, you will that one.
Go find him. Go find his videos about this.
So the link is actually up in our Discord. So check that out. But yeah, we definitely want to talk to him about that. We know this is something he's been wanting for forever. So that's currently the plan. Hopefully we can get that confirmed here soon. But otherwise, we'll see you guys here next week.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.